Hello, how is everyone today? I'm sorry for not announcing the time that I was going to stream today. But yeah, we are here now. Also, I didn't know if I wanted to stream already at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. So I only said, oh, I'm just going to change my stream from Saturday to Sunday, and here we are now. After this stream, I will make and upload a schedule for next week. Yeah. I'll not be streaming Serial Phenomenon next week, so I'll probably not even stream on Friday. That was why I changed it. Unless something comes up and I would stream it. I think this is all the announcement. Also, let's see if today we can play the Night of the Rabbit. I think so. I think last time I just needed to restart my computer because it must have been some problem with the platform with GOG Galaxy because that platform wasn't letting me open itself, and then the game was constantly closing, and now seems like everything is fine. So I probably only needed to restart the computer last time, but since I was really close to the start of the stream, I couldn't do that. That was what I said, so let's do it today. And yeah, if I finish it today, I'm going back to that escape room game. If I finish it, not if I finish it, when I finish the game, or if this happens any other time, I will go back to that escape room game. But until then, I'm just keep going and playing the Night of the Rabbit as much as I can. So yeah, let's just play the game. And last stream, I said that I was going to hear the full story on next time I play the game. The story that we had just got, so let's do it now.
The first story of mice, squirrels, and mousewood forest. Somewhere, tucked away between faraway fields and winding paths, there lies a forest crowded with mice and squirrels. So crowded, in fact, that even a mighty wizard with an even mightier beard couldn't wander the forest's paths without being asked by some tiny rodents for a lift, because they wanted to visit relatives who moved 3 clearings down the road a few years ago because there were gooseberries over there. And because there are so many mice, the forest is known as Mousewood Forest. But something was going on in the otherwise tranquil Mousewood Forest. A forest so peaceful that at noon all you would sense was the soft rustle of the wind in the treetops, the sweet scent of the pine needles, and a lone bud.
Sorry, I'm just checking if the sound of the game changed or not. I just remembered. Sorry.
The squirrels, as they
Make sure.
Should Mousewood Forest only be known as Mousewood Forest? So they made a great effort to remind visitors out for a Sunday walk or a picnic that there were not only small grey mice, but also auburn squirrels with bushy tails and equally bushy ears. For example, under each sign that read Mousewood Forest, they attached a second, reading, and Squirrelwood. Furthermore, a few squirrels with particularly fluffy red fur lay in wait behind tree stumps and hidden in foliage to jump out in front of passers-by, look at those humans with honest, beady eyes, and push the idea that this forest could just as well be called Squirrelwood. As a rule, most humans are startled when suddenly something pops out in front of them from behind something. This may lead to them no longer thinking about Mousewood Forest and its name, which could just as well be a different name. Instead, they may flee, never to return. Or they may even scream and shout, since they weren't expecting to be startled. Those who run away never to return, the squirrels reckoned, would probably call fair Mousewood Forest by its name, which might just as well be a different name. A startled, fleeing rambler might even call Mousewood Forest "Don't go there." And that, the squirrels concluded, would be even less desirable than Mousewood Forest. If people started screaming when startled by a small auburn animal, the serenity of the forest would be lost for good. And neither the squirrels nor the countless other forest dwellers, not even the inhabitants of Mousewood, Mousewood Forest's capital, would want that. For serenity in a forest is no ordinary silence, like in a boring, noiseless room, but a cacophony of many tiny, likeable sounds. The wind wafting through the leaves, twigs clicking in the canopy, rustling down in the undergrowth, and the gentle creaking of towering trunks. So, if the squirrels wanted to purposely pop out from behind something, they had to be careful about doing it, without scaring anybody off or disturbing the forest's serenity. Those who know squirrels are probably wondering how anyone could possibly be afraid of the little fellows at all. Well, if a small animal with a bushy red tail suddenly crossed your path, you might be briefly startled, but in an instant you'd spot that the little animal was just as much taken by surprise as yourself. What would follow is a cautious glance and then a quick dash to safety. Then again, if a small animal with a bushy red tail and beady eyes leapt out in front of you when you're roaming the woods, and you happened to notice, after a fleeting moment of fright, that this squirrel was actually up to something, that it was standing in the way of somebody so much taller than itself on purpose, then such a small animal must surely be capable of anything. It'd probably run up to you really fast, climb up your legs and back until it reached the top of your head, and then start furiously tousling your hair with its tiny paws. In anticipation of this, anybody would run or scream, assuming they don't actually like getting their hair tousled by squirrels who are up to something. Since squirrels are generally not very fond of having their own fur tousled, they try and hide the fact that they leap out on purpose. It has to look like a coincidence. Even those blessed with beady eyes have to play act a bit if they want to appear surprised and shy, when they in fact aren't. Just this morning, around 9 o'clock, 3 squirrels decided to practice popping out from behind something, since, as you now know, it's easier said than done. Wait for it. Wait for it. Leap. Stop. Have a look round. Spot the rambler. Freeze. Stare at the rambler and straighten those tufted ears. Add a few skillful hops behind the next bush, spiral up that tree like an expert, and then watch the rambler's reaction from a safe distance. As if you really were surprised to see me. Well done, Oswald, said Edgar, one of the 3 squirrels. He had played the role of the rambler, roaming around before then getting a reminder of the striking number of squirrels living in these woods. He had held a large leaf, painted with a surprised human face, in front of him to make this training exercise as real as possible. Oswald, the 2nd squirrel, climbed nimbly down the tree, while Edward, the 3rd squirrel, who had only played the role of spectator during this run, hopped out of the nearby bushes. Yeah, really good, he confirmed. Flawless, even. Looked really realistic to me. Thanks, Oswald said. It was time to switch roles. Since Oswald already knew the ropes of popping out from behind something, it was his turn to watch from the bushes. He was in an excellent position to tell Edgar, who had just played the rambler, if he was also good at popping out from behind something, or if there was anything he could improve on. Edward just had to stroll along the path and carry the leaf with a face on it in front of him. When Edgar popped out, by chance, and confronted Edward, the latter froze as if petrified. The leaf in his paws began to shake, as did his legs and, eventually, his squirrely tail. He seemed truly shaken. Shaken like a rambler afraid of a squirrel tousling his hair. Faced with this, Edgar completely forgot that he had to act like a shy squirrel and was supposed to scurry up the next tree. Instead, he just stared, stock still at the face painted on the shaking leaf. Edward took his role of a startled visitor very seriously. As soon as he noticed that the animal with the red bushy tail and beady eyes that had suddenly popped out in front of him wasn't in the least bit shy or frightened, he shook even more. "Ah!" he yelled, certain that this was how somebody afraid their hair was about to be tousled would yell. He turned and ran away as fast as he could. And because he was determined to be as convincing as possible, he disappeared for a few days. After waiting for a couple of hours, Edgar and Oswald were no longer in the mood to continue their training. They sat down by a small stream running through the forest and thought. They thought about training, and about the fact that thinking about training was already a good training exercise in itself, sometimes. And then they thought about acorns and nuts. After a while, a group of mice came along the bank of the stream. "Hello there, a very good day to you." "How are you?" Edgar responded. "Good day to you too," said Oswald. One of the mice stepped forward and took a small leaf with writing on it from his rucksack. After clearing his throat, the mouse began to read aloud. "Dear Squirrels, we, the mice, know you don't really like the name Mousewood Forest. Since your kind is so numerous in this forest, it might just as well be named after you. Since noticing how much effort you put into reminding people that the forest could be named differently, we wanted to invite you to a meeting where we will consider, together with the other forest dwellers, what to do about the situation." The mouse rolled up the leaf and put it back in his rucksack. Oswald and Edgar thought briefly about what the mouse had just read to them. They concluded that if they didn't have to remind people that Squirrelwood would also be a fitting name for their forest, there would be plenty of time for all sorts of other things. And Edward would surely say there was no fun in hiding for ages just to play a scared rambler convincingly in order to practice popping out from behind something, if, that is, he weren't hiding right now. So they accepted the mice's invitation and followed them along the stream until they reached a clearing where many other forest dwellers were already gathered. Mice, squirrels, hedgehogs, dwarves, hares and bears, and many more inhabitants of the forest were sitting on benches made from long branches or standing next to tables set with freshly baked blueberry pie. They were chatting about this and that and other things. One young badger was talking to a hedgehog about fishing at the pond. A beaver was discussing the quality of lumber with the hedgehog brothers. Two little mice were playing tag with the rabbit kids, while their mothers tried to persuade a grumpy wood dwarf to reveal the recipe for a drink made with dwarf root. On a stump sat Conrad, the great owl. He was a member of the town council, and his great owl eyes looked benevolently upon the crowd of animals, dwarves, and whoever else had gathered there. "Hoot!" he called out with a deep and calm voice, instantly gaining the audience's attention. "My dear friends," he began, "as you may be aware, we have gathered here to resolve the dispute about the name of our forest. I am honoured to hold the chair of this assembly. Many of the squirrels among us would like to see Squirrelwood as the legitimate name for our home. Well, seeing as there are a good deal of squirrels here in our forest, their wish is hardly surprising. But let us not dwell on that." He slowly closed his eyes, only to open them again in an instant, as if he had had a sudden stroke of genius. "A forest called Mousewood Forest. What kind of forest would come to someone's mind who was not familiar with our beloved woods?" Conrad's head turned inquisitively as his gaze wandered across the gathering. Animals, dwarves, and a few others thought hard. Oswald the squirrel's first thoughts were concerned with nuts, but he quickly realized that these had nothing to do with the name, more the fact that he really liked nuts. So he continued thinking hard and eventually called out in a low voice, "They'd probably think of a wood full of mice?" Conrad, the old owl, blinked with his left eye, with his right following shortly after. This is indeed what someone would think when they first heard the name. "Thank you, Oswald," said the owl. "But there are not only mice in these woods. There is, in fact, no such thing as a forest populated solely by mice. What sort of forest would that be if there were only mice in it?" Much murmuring ran through the assembled ranks. Even the mice had trouble imagining a forest with only mice in. Nothing but mice. "We mice can't do everything on our own," said a young mouse named Humbert, while the older mice nodded in agreement. "All on our own? Impossible," they exclaimed. "You see," said the owl calmly, "and we can't survive without you either." This he said
Well,
with
you
such
can
conviction that some of the mice flinched. They had good reason to assume that this owl had an occasional appetite for mice, despite his wisdom and kindness. So, if someone hears the name Mousewood Forest and thinks there will only be mice, they will quickly come to the conclusion that such a thing cannot exist. Conrad balanced carefully on the stump as he spoke. They will be aware that there must be squirrels and badgers and ants and crows and all kinds of other animals. We all need each other to survive. "But why is Mousewood Forest called Mousewood Forest anyway?" some squirrels wanted to know, still feeling disadvantaged. A wood sprite nervously clicked some twigs. "Because, at the time this forest was named, there were a lot of mice here, as there still are today. But even if one day there are fewer mice, this forest will still be called Mousewood Forest. You can't just rename a forest, can you? Just imagine if someone wanted to visit and couldn't find us because the forest had been renamed. Hoot! And the squirrels had to agree. They had grandparents who rarely visited since they lived so far away. They didn't dare think how sad it would be if they were unable to visit because they couldn't find Mousewood Forest anymore. Furthermore, Conrad continued, it would not be wise to add squirrels to the forest's name, for then we would have to add the dwarves and all the other animals as well. A name is not supposed to be a census. Hoot! Just imagine the confusion that would result. The squirrels preferred to think about nuts and acorns. They were far less confusing. "You see," Conrad concluded, "it is not about how many of a certain kind are present, or who was here first. This forest belongs to each and every animal living in and near it. Hoot! Even if it is called Mousewood Forest, no one would ever believe only mice live here. It is a name, and the point of a name is to paint part of the whole picture, perhaps part of its history." Conrad then realized that most of the animals didn't understand, so he tried to give them an example. "You see, someone called Honesty does not necessarily have to be honest. If she is dishonest, she would surely not change her name. Hoot! She would remain Honesty, since that is the name that was given her." The little mouse called Humbert yelled in outrage, "But if she were honest, she would return her name." "If she were honest," said a surly wood dwarf to Humbert, "she wouldn't have to. Then she could keep her name." Conrad the owl closed both eyes before he said slowly, but with empathy and a touch of impatience, "You do not, Hoot, change a name. You rarely do. Usually you don't." That would have to suffice. He spread his wings, performed 2 quick hops on the stump, and then,
can see
with
that
2
this
or
is
3
in
silent
old
flaps,
times.
soared skywards. Some animals were satisfied with his explanation. Others debated whether Honesty could keep her name if she at least volunteered to return it after a single dishonesty, since that would be the honest thing to do. Others swiftly made their way home, unsettled by the huge owl circling overhead. The squirrels, Oswald and Edgar, were now looking for Edward. He had managed to hide in exactly the way someone afraid a small animal with a bushy red tail and beady black eyes would leap on his head and furiously tousle everything up there would. They walked slowly along the stream. The hubbub faded with each step they took away from the clearing and eventually died away. Wind rustled the treetops, and Oswald paused, pondering. So The wood is not very much like its name, but it doesn't need to be, since names don't change. It just is. Even though the forest is constantly changing and growing, it just takes its name along with it. Edgar nodded eagerly. Both were glad that, since the forest could not just be renamed Squirrelwood, they and their well-hidden friend would have the next day off. Because somebody, at some point, when the forest was much smaller, had given it its name. And you don't change names. Well, rarely. Usually, you don't.
In the old times, maybe. Now you can. Back to the game. After we had our story moment. So I spoke with...
Oh. Hello, Jeremiah. It seems like you also like to be out and about at night. I love the serenity of being alone
So I
in
need to go
places
more
like this at night.
time
You can hear the whisper
at
of
night
secret
to
stories that are hiding here and
find
there.
to find
I
him
have a special
and
story.
have stories.
It's about mice. Would you like? Did you like my story? I often find strange things between the worlds. Fragments of stories long forgotten. Lost beginnings. And lost endings. Perhaps
Why was
there's
it
something
break?
you have forgotten. Maybe I can find what you have lost.
I'd better not use the book here. Better not raise a ruckus here at night.
Can I go there then?
Here, missing ingredients for the Hare family's cake. A handful of sweet red berries, chocolate, some milk, and beet syrup.
I need to put these in. No, I have everything. And Anja.
Better not raise a ruckus here at night.
Hey, no you don't. Nobody comes in here without an invitation.
So, there's no cake at your party?
Yeah, that's right, you little wise guy. I don't know what's keeping Anya, but without cake, this party will be a disaster. But that's family business and only family business.
What does private party mean again?
That means that everyone who has no business here should shut their trap.
Well, he's deaf. Well then, have a good time. I don't...
Fine.
Better not raise a ruckus here at night. I'd better not use the book here. There's a sign. Roof terrace closed. Danger of abduction by crows. That doesn't sound good.
Haven't I? Okay. I got everything. Change. Oh. Huh? Oh, okay. Okay, I see what I did wrong.
Whoopee! Hello, Jenny. You're out and about late. Well, where to? Let's go. Hang on tight, Jenny. See you later.
Anyone taller than a but they're hidden among. Remember, thank you.
Okay.
I'm so tired. The dwarves are snoring like a storm. Remember, thank you gift for the badgers for the.
I was trying to exit, but it was already really thing to exit. I think I talked with this.
You're funny, little boy.
What the heck are you?
Nothing's whispering here. Nothing's whispering here. Nothing's whispering here. Nothing's whispering here. I think I already talked to her. Hello.
Hi there. Are you delivering packages again?
No.
I've heard that the fields are haunted at night. I'd really like to see, but I think it's much too early. Extravagant.
Hello, Anja.
Welcome back.
About the cake for the Hare family. Again.
If you find the ingredients, I can make the cake. Just
See you later.
Take care.
Okay.
An ingredient for the cake. Thank you, my little cracker crust. All that's missing now is some milk and that beet syrup.
We won't
All
do
the ingredients I need are on this note.
Okay.
The hare fat made. An ingredient for the thank you, my little. All that's chocolate
Okay.
and the beet syrup. An ingredient. Thank you, my little. All that's chocolate.
Thank you for
I have to
giving me
be
back my
careful, the
Pokemon.
chocolate will melt in my hand. Again. That's what Mama will say. I have to be careful that that's what Mama always. I have to be careful that that's what Mama.
Why didn't
That's
it work
an
at
ingredient
first,
for the
huh?
hare family's cake. Now we have everything honeycomb. By tomorrow, I'll bake a pancake-tastic treat, and then you can pick it up and take it to the hare family. Maybe they'll even invite you to their birthday party, my little meringue.
Okay. Now I changed for it tonight. So I go here. And for that it changes to the night. Why that mouth looks so sad?
Better not raise a ruckus here at night.
Woohoo! Hello, you're up well.
Yes, Plato.
Our post office by the river. Let's go. Hang on tight, Jerry.
Cherry.
See you later.
Oh.
Hello, Jeremiah. Did you know that the moon is responsible for the tides? But my old friend the moon has nothing to do with this flood, or with the wild crows that haunt this area during the day. Do you see the lights on the other side of the river? Over there looms the beginning of the sad story for Mousewood's folk. I hope it will have a happy ending.
Isn't there something we can do to help?
That is out of our hands, I'm afraid. But wait, let me tell you a beautiful story from the time before the flood.
Okay, story
It's
time
about
again.
the old magician visiting the post office by the river. Would you like to hear it? Did you like my story? I often find strange things between the worlds. Fragments of lost book. And lost apps? Maybe I...
Okay, let's hear the story time again.
8 stories from... Second story. A wizard at the post office. One morning, a really old wizard living on the outskirts of Mousewood decided to pay a visit to the post office. The wizard was very wise and knowledgeable, but he rarely talked to his neighbours, like the Hedgehog brothers who resided a few steps further towards Mousewood town centre, or the Toad family of Meadow Pond. He was leaning on his bedroom windowsill, enjoying the refreshing view of green meadows, when through the foggy morning dew, which sparkled in the early sunlight, he noticed two familiar figures trundling along the track nearby. One didn't need magical powers to spot that these were the Hedgehog brothers on their way to the river, even though at that time of day they were usually headed in the opposite direction to the edge of the forest, where they could get all kinds of building materials. One would, however, need magical powers to know that these two were on their way to the post office to pick up a delivery. They had ordered new tools for their carpentry business. The wizard felt that he, too, should pay the post office a visit. He had a magical hunch, as skilled wizards like himself tend to have from time to time. He sensed that he had to go to the post office to receive a letter.
Okay, I think I'm going to
What he
get all the
didn't know,
stories.
though, was if the postman was ill or had simply forgotten his post. Magical hunches tend not to be all that accurate, so a lot of wizards don't really pay attention to them when they come to mind. But our wizard didn't really have anything else to do. He took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. Then he closed the window and grabbed his case, a wooden case with shoulder straps made of leather. He always had the case with him, as a wizard has to expect to be asked for help, and should thus have a few helpful things at hand. The wizard hurried down the stairs, packed a bit of this and a bit of that, then unlatched his massive wooden front door and stepped outside. High above him, the wind rustled the green crown of the beech tree, the very same beech he had stood beneath many years before when he decided to build his home here. Back then, his beard had already been white, though shorter and scraggier. The Hedgehog brothers' father had run a carpentry business and supervised the construction of the wizard's house. Just like his sons, he was a master of his craft. The wizard turned and walked along the path from his house to the wider track that ran beside the fields. The sun was busy spreading its warmth across the path, driving the moisture from the dark sand, slowly turning the rich, humid brown to a lighter, dry tone. The scrubby weeds at the roadside were still heavy with dew, which bent them towards the ground where they sleepily rested on each other. Some of them sprang up as if startled from sleep as soon as the old man, who knew many, but not, of course, all the secrets of magic, brushed them with his feet. The wizard hitched the strap of his case over his right shoulder, clutched it close to his body with his left hand, and began walking faster. The sound of the sand under his feet and the wide fields blending into the horizon lit a spark in the wizard's eyes. The choice of paths and destinations a rambler had here, and the unconditional beauty of the landscape, reminded him of the freedom he had to roam wherever he wished, while still having the possibility to return home. Having this meant having almost everything one could wish for. With almost everything in his luggage necessary for a happy life, the old man walked on and on. In the distance he could see people working in the fields. This view was unusual for him, as he lived on the outskirts of Mousewood, where humans were rare visitors. For the people, the wizard pondered, it would be the other way round. They would be surprised if they saw animals at work. If, for example, a badger crossed their path carrying paintbrush and easel and politely greeted them, the most courteous response he could hope for would be something along the lines of, "Look, a badger! They live in the woods and eat beetles, I think." The other humans would simply nod and return to their human business. Why that is, most animals can only guess. Perhaps humans have poor eyesight. Perhaps they're a bit dim-witted or eat overripe mushrooms. And those can have strange side effects, as animals know.
Oh my
Or maybe they
God.
can't take something that's smaller than them seriously. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Most humans just seem to have forgotten how to live among animals. Those farmhands would even have been bewildered at the sight of a wizard at the post office, especially seeing that the post office was run by a beaver. A few steps further on, the old man came to a house made of coarse stones, effortlessly holding up a thick thatched roof. He noticed a mother rabbit hanging out her laundry in the front yard. A baby rabbit sat beside her on a stump, watching her with curiosity. Each time she took a fresh piece of laundry from her basket, the boy looked closely, eager to know if it was a shirt or socks or something completely different. As she pulled it out and hung it over the clothes line, he jumped up and ran right under the piece of laundry so he could see exactly how she hung it on the line. Then he looked at her again to see what she'd do next. And as she reached into the basket, he sat down again on the stump, no less excited than before and eager to see the next piece of clothing to be hung up. Even though the wizard wasn't the chattiest person in the forest, he did talk to the mother rabbit now and then about this and that when they met on the path or elsewhere. And since she was no longer the youngest rabbit, and he was definitely old, they had been neighbours long enough to fit in a lot of now and thens, and so knew each other pretty well. "Hello, Mrs. Rabbit," said the wizard, and was quite startled by the sound of his own voice, since he had been lost in thought for days, talking to no one but himself. The little rabbit turned to the wizard, and her big rabbit eyes took in the old man. For a second he gazed back from under his white bushy brows in similar bewilderment. "Why, hello, where are you heading?" she asked, a pile of towels under her arm. "I'm on the way to the post office," he replied. "So you're expecting something," the rabbit lady said, as she sorted socks by colour. "Indeed, a letter. It's just a magical hunch, but it won't hurt to pay the beaver a visit, will it? At least the fresh air will do me some good." "That's for sure," replied the rabbit, and with 2 quick waves of her hand, turned a duvet cover inside out, and with 2 more skilled twists, threw it over the last free section of clothesline. Then she picked up 2 clothes pegs and handed them to the boy. With a resolute look, he took the pegs, got up on the stump he'd been sitting on, and stretched out his arms in front of him. His mother lifted him up to reach the clothesline and peg the cover to the line. He folded his arms and inspected his work. His mother sat him down in this position and turned back to the wizard. "My son Tim has no school today, and I have so much to do he's bound to get bored. Would you mind taking him with you to the post office?" The old man would have been grateful for the opportunity to think about this request for a while and decide if it was a good idea. As he lowered his head to think about it for at least a moment, his gaze met those big rabbit eyes again.
A
Tim was all
magician
set and even had
met
his rucksack ready,
a rabbit's
which caused
kid.
the wizard to murmur in astonishment, which otherwise happened only rarely.
Sounds familiar
The wise
to
old man
us.
and his young companion set off, accompanied by
Like
a
the
fresh
man that we
midday
just
breeze.
met.
The young rabbit had no difficulty
With
keeping up with
our
the pace
master.
of the, at least compared to a rabbit, giant wizard, but the man walked a tad slower than usual anyway. They walked on for a while, and then walked on for another while, in silence, past whispering meadows. A couple of steps away from the path, a gnarled tree creaked, and along with 2 scrubby bushes growing comfortably by its knotty trunk, couldn't help but notice the wizard's intense silence. The man, trained in the arts of magic, wasn't sure if it would be better to stay silent or actually say something, and even if he'd been sure it would be better to say something, he would still have struggled to come up with something to say. As he pondered this problem, he missed a gnarled root sticking out of the ground in front of him. He staggered, flailed around in surprise, and seemed about to tumble. But eventually he regained his balance and steadied himself. Taking a deep breath and smoothing down his beard, he noticed Tim peering at him. The old man looked down, unable to spot any harm or injury. "I'm all right," said the wizard. "Let's be on our way." "Onward ho!" said Tim, and started walking at a slower pace than young rabbits usually do, even though the wizard hadn't hurt himself. So they left the root behind, along with the gnarled tree that didn't seem to be in the slightest involved in this episode. On their way, the 2 of them met a hedgehog who was spreading out a red and white checked blanket on the grass by the bridge across the gushing stream that had to be crossed on the way to the post office. He seemed to be just settling down for a lunch break and was taking some sandwiches out of a basket beside him. As he noticed the two hikers, he stopped what he was doing, stood up, and with a broad, happy smile, asked with blinking hedgehog eyes, "Where are you two heading?" "To the stream," the old man replied. "My young friend and I are on our way to the post office." Tim and the wizard stood by the wayside, both of them realizing that it was about lunchtime. This obviously didn't escape the hedgehog, and he decided a tasty sandwich would do the two of them good. Fresh country air provides a healthy appetite, and if there was one thing there was no shortage of out here, it was country air. "May I offer you a little refreshment?" asked the hedgehog, who loved to pack a little something more than he could actually eat, as he also loved to share. Tim looked inquisitively at the wizard as the old man answered, "Well, thank you. We very much appreciate the offer." Tim continued to look up at him inquisitively. With a slight creaking sound, the wizard bent down to the young rabbit. He explained that you shouldn't usually accept things from strangers if you're not a wizard. Wizards always know if they're dealing with a scoundrel or simply a friendly stranger. Tim nodded in agreement. The hedgehog pretended to overhear the fact he was being merely deemed a stranger who happened to be friendly. He was a modest fellow, so he didn't dwell on it, and instead handed his guests his most delicious sandwiches, which was difficult because when it came to sandwiches, he was a master of his craft, so they were all truly delicious. The three of them sat beside the stream, enjoying their lunch, and talked. The hedgehog introduced himself as Heinz. He was a cousin of the Hedgehog brothers, who were, as Heinz explained, also on their way to the post office. The wizard recalled seeing them in the morning as he looked out of his window. The hedgehogs were planning to pick up their cousin here at the stream on their way back. After all, they knew he enjoyed sitting in the sun, listening to the stream's unhurried murmuring. And Heinz knew they wouldn't take a break, even for tasty sandwiches like these, if they were picking up new tools. So he decided to wait for them right there. Tim ventured to the bank and had a look round. "Look at this!" he called out. Both cautiously made their way through the tall grass along the water's edge. The stream was full of tiny fish, struggling against the smooth current. The three of them watched the opalescent fish and the crystal-clear water for a while. Around them, beetles buzzed through the air, enjoying the sunshine and the gentle breeze. It seemed to be cooler in the shade down under the bridge, where a gurgling ripple could be heard. From the opposite side of the stream, Heinz waved goodbye as Tim and the wizard crossed the bridge. Tim waved back and kept looking
I
back
just remembered the
until he could no
joke
longer
that
see the hedgehog because of the
we-
tall grass.
This is
Tim
bad.
now walked a few paces ahead, but stopped to listen when their feet took them into a part of the forest where the ground was covered in a thick layer of pine needles. Even a fully fledged wizard can't match the listening skills of a young rabbit. The wise man listened, but the forest was so silent he could hear nothing but his own heartbeat. The rabbit's ears, however, were so keen that he could clearly hear two voices singing merrily further along the path. Shortly afterwards, the wizard also became aware of two hedgehogs approaching. It was the Hedgehog brothers, on their way back after successfully picking up their new tools from the post office. "A brand new hammer is a wonderful thing. Our old one has long lost its swing. A new saw helps us build your home. The old one, well, just made us groan. New tools were sent us through the post, for carpentry's what we like most." The Hedgehog brothers continued the song by rhythmically imitating various tools. But when they noticed two people in the forest crossing their path, they stopped. They probably preferred to sing without an audience. After recognizing two familiar faces, they raised their hats as they approached. "Good day to you, Master Wizard," they greeted in unison. The wizard gave them a friendly wave, and Tim nodded politely. "Looks like you've got everything you ordered," said the wizard. "Absolutely right," one hedgehog brother replied happily. He could easily be told apart from his brother, as he was wearing blue dungarees. "But we've got to be on our way now. Our cousin's waiting for us in the meadows near the stream. I hope the wait isn't too boring for him. He's got no tools, you know," said his brother in the red dungarees. "Not to worry," the wizard replied. "Not to worry," Tim added. And so the Hedgehog brothers walked on towards Mousewood, while the young rabbit and his aged companion followed the stream to the post office, which stood on the bank among some old willow trees. "Here we are, the post office," said the wizard in a portentous voice. Tim was very impressed. On the side of the building facing the river, a water wheel rustled and clattered. A rustic pier led to a boat, waiting to stem itself against the stream or gently glide through the water to other forests, towns, and post offices, maybe even as far as the sea. As they entered, they were greeted by the postmaster, a stout beaver who was sorting letters at his desk. Beside him stood piles of carefully wrapped parcels. "Hello there, Mr. Beaver. Do you have any post for me?" the wizard asked politely. "No, I'm sorry. I'd know if I did," the beaver said, adding, "Besides, you should know we deliver directly to you." "Well, that is if something's been left here, but—" and he gestured towards some pigeonholes reserved for the wizard's district of Mousewood. "Nothing has." "That's okay," the wise old man replied, pondering. "That's the thing with magical hunches. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't." Nevertheless, he still had the uncanny feeling there was post waiting for him. He didn't think it wise to mention this at the post office, though. If the beaver told him there was no post, there was no post. As the wizard continued to ponder, accompanied by the water wheel's helpful rattling, the stout postmaster told Tim of the time when Mousewood almost underwent a name change, a matter that had caused him many a sleepless night. You can't just change a forest's name. It's especially harrowing for a postman. Tim agreed. As noon turned to afternoon and the sun's rays took on a warm golden yellow, the little rabbit and the wizard, still pondering, made their way home. As they walked beneath regal pines, the old man looked up and let his gaze rest upon an exhilarating symphony of light and shadow. High above them, spiders' webs shimmered between the branches. Old, abandoned, and riddled with holes, their creators had long since left on 8 busy legs. "Just look at that," the wizard said, and pointed upwards. Tim was delighted by the spectacle high overhead, and found out after a while that, if he spun around on the spot while looking up at the webs, the sunlight caught in them refracted into opalescent colours. With a harumph, the wizard looked down at him. "I don't suppose your mother would be too happy if I told her you were spinning around like that." Tim looked at the wizard, who blocked out the sun and treetops like an old cloud. Then the wizard shook with laughter and started spinning himself. Then Tim began to laugh. A family of mice, who had just curled up with their evening tea, listened to the disturbance in their otherwise quiet neighbourhood. But while their kids acted as if they'd be held responsible for all the noise, eventually the mouse father couldn't hold back any longer and joined in. Along with his wife and the mice's grandmother, they rocked with laughter. Tim and the wizard arrived back at the bridge, passing the meadow where they had met Heinz. Both walked a little slower as they remembered the kind hedgehog, as well as the shiny fish they had watched in the stream. Further along the path, Tim noticed a familiar root. He politely asked the wizard to stand back. Then he hopped from where he stood, as rabbits tend to do, right over the root without difficulty. He glanced back and assured his companion that this method of passing the root was completely safe. The wizard gave a stern look at the snare that had caused him to stumble that afternoon. Then he performed a lively and, for such an old wizard, impressive hop right over it. As he landed, the wizard glanced down at the root. It stuck out of the ground as innocently as a root can. The gnarled tree nearby would probably have enjoyed the spectacle, but right now it seemed to be taking a nap. The wizard snapped his fingers, and the air filled with glistening, crackling sparks. With a rustle, the root disappeared into the earth of the forest. After this magical sleight of hand, the old man rejoined his companion, and together they continued on their way, just like two ramblers who know at least two safe methods to get past roots crossing your path. After a while they reached the house where the wizard had met the little rabbit and his mother that morning. The laundry waved in the gentle evening breeze. "I'm home," Tim shouted, and a few moments later the door opened and 5 curious rabbit heads poked out. Mrs. Rabbit made her way through Tim's siblings, drying her hands on a tea towel. She laughingly embraced the little rabbit as he leapt up at her. On the doorstep, the family bade the wizard farewell, and none of the little rabbits let him leave without a hearty goodbye. The wizard bowed and wished them a good evening.
Oh, that's nice.
"Many thanks for your company on the way to the post office, my young friend," the old man said to Tim, who waved one last farewell. Then Mrs. Rabbit and her children went into the house. Leaving the rabbit family behind him, the wizard made his way home. Around him, in the tall grass, the songs of crickets and locusts could be heard, bidding their own farewell to the fading sun, which was approaching the horizon at a leisurely pace. In the distance, dusk had already fallen, but everywhere the wizard looked, humans, animals, and whatever else lived under this evening sky seemed utterly content. And as he turned off the forest road onto the path leading to his house, his high beech tree, which had kept a silent vigil over his home, greeted him. His eyes wandered upwards to the treetop. Then he unlatched the massive wooden door, put his case down, and took a look around the house, like someone who had journeyed far and almost forgotten what his home looked like. With one more glance at the evening sky, the wizard closed the door. The magical hunch regarding his post might have been a red herring, but paying the post office a visit had been a good idea nonetheless. Of that the old man was certain. Meanwhile, at the rabbit family's house, Tim sat down at his father's desk, took a sheet of paper, and started writing, as neatly as he could. Dear wizard. So that the old man would remember this day, he wanted to write to him about how they had met Heinz, the kind hedgehog with his sandwiches, about the Hedgehog Brothers' song, about the boat bobbing up and down in the stream, and of course about the stout beaver, who was sure to deliver this letter reliably.
That's so sweet. Actually, I didn't intend this to be like all the story times today. It seems like it's going to be all the stories today. I just forgot something.
Hello, Jeremiah.
I keep forgetting that the whole name is
I
Jeremiah.
thought I was alone.
I'm so
You
I'm
also
so
like
used
to
to the fucking
stride
Jerry.
through the night, moving behind the scenes. That's where I find many of my stories. And I know an interesting one about the grumpy wood dwarfs who live here. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, sure.
Did you like my story? I often fragments lost book. And lost, perhaps there's something. Maybe I can find.
Third story. On wood dwarves, badgers, and a false impression. Dwarves are a burly bunch. Everyone in Mousewood knows that. They are excellent miners and blacksmiths. They were even designated the guardians of important bridges until trolls took over that duty. The dwarves of Mousewood, called wood dwarves, were just as accustomed to hard work, even though, from the point of view of a burly dwarf, the work often didn't seem hard at all. 3 dwarves who rarely backed away from a challenge shared a home right in the middle of Mousewood. The eldest dwarf was called Steinberg. He was 85 years old. Even by dwarf standards, he couldn't be considered green anymore, even though his father and grandfather always teased young Steinberg at family celebrations. His fellow lodgers were called Logger and Softsteel. Logger was 73 and had a
Steinberg is the one I
magnificent
know.
forked red beard. Softsteel was the youngest and had just had his 71st birthday, without making much song and dance about it. Dwarves like to party loud and long, and as often as possible, just not on birthdays. Maybe because they have so many of them.
Oh.
The dwarves' home lay deep within the forest, half above and half below ground. There were cellars and mine shafts reaching deep under the forest floor. The dwarves drove these tunnels and shafts deeper and deeper between the roots and the earth, hoping for new pockets of precious metal or other treasures in the soil. Around their home, the 3 dwarves cultivated beds of dwarf root. Dwarf root is not a particularly small root. It's called dwarf root because only wood dwarves cultivate it, because they know how to extract the precious blue juice. Blue juice is popular among the forest dwellers for its peculiar taste and slightly unpredictable effects.
Oh, alcohol.
In any case, no one in Mousewood would ever think of small when thinking of a dwarf. In fact, dwarves are a good deal larger than mice, squirrels, or foxes. A fox could only match a dwarf in size if it tried to walk on 2 legs, like mice and squirrels sometimes do. OK, granted, from time to time, even foxes try to walk on 2 legs. But if you ever see a fox trying to do so, you'll immediately know why these sly fellows chose a quadrupedal life. It's like watching humans try to crawl on all 4s just for the sake of it. A ridiculous sight. In addition to their burly physique and knowledge of blue juice, there's another significant characteristic innate to all dwarves: grumpiness. No one knows why or since when. Even the dwarves themselves cannot recall, so each and every day they look for reasons to be grumpy. Actually, they'd be happy if they didn't find anything to be grumpy about, but there's always something to make them irritable. One morning, Steinberg was sitting at the kitchen table in their tidy house, waiting for his fellow lodgers. They had gone down to the cellar half an hour previously to get some honey for breakfast. The cellar is where the dwarves stored their food, since the cool, damp caves kept it fresh. Steinberg had everything already prepared. He poured out some fresh, cold milk, cut the bread into thick slices, and had a chunk of fresh butter. All that was missing was sweet, golden honey. Suddenly, Steinberg heard a loud grumbling coming from the cellar door, a grumbling he knew all too well. The dwarf already had a bad feeling about what was in store. Finally, his housemates climbed the creaking cellar stairs up to the living room and looked gloomily at Steinberg. "We're out of honey," Softsteel said, grimly putting out the lantern he had used to illuminate the cellar's depths. You could see in his expression that for him, a breakfast without honey was no breakfast at all. "And we won't find any up here either," growled Logger, running his tongue around his mouth, silently smacking his lips, as if this could conjure up the sweet taste he now had to do without. "Pah!" exclaimed Steinberg, something the dwarves make a habit of. "Pah!" he said again, getting up from his chair. "It's always the same, I tell you. The day's ruined." He stood with hands on hips, resting them on his broad leather belt, as if he were bracing himself for another ruined day. Slowly he calmed down and grumbled, "All right, no honey then." And eventually the dwarves sat down and had breakfast, if you could call it breakfast. "Pah!" Steinberg sputtered, his mouth full. Later on, the dwarves got ready for work on the root beds. They strapped their bags for gathering ripe roots over their shoulders and picked up their hoes and shovels and everything else they needed. Without another word, the wood dwarfs left the house. A cuckoo's call echoed through the trees as Steinberg, Softsteel, and Logger inspected their root beds. It looked like being a very promising harvest. Many thick dwarf roots were ripening, waiting to be turned into delicious blue juice. Softsteel began to carefully till the earth around the precious plants with his hoe. Meanwhile, Logger checked the huge harvesting baskets for holes and other damage they might have suffered during the last shift. They seemed, however, to be in immaculate condition, despite the fact that they had been outside for weeks. Before they started harvesting, though, Steinberg would always smoke a pipe, which he kept along with his tobacco in a pouch on his belt. He began packing the tobacco. But, just as he was about to light the pipe with a burning splint he had already lit with a lighter a relative had once crafted for him, he was startled by a yell.
Just wondering.
So startled, in fact, that his
How
pipe fell out of
old
his
is
open mouth to the
everyone?
ground.
Because
"Hello,
just met
we
them.
need help!"
and we are
A badger
hearing
yelled as
stories
he
from the
ran towards
past
the dwarf.
with people that we know.
Logger and Softsteel joined Steinberg,
Like on the first
waiting
story,
to hear
Conrad
what the
was
badger had
there,
to say.
and we met Conrad.
"Excuse
He's
me,"
a totally
the
fine
badger said,
owl.
gasping for air and
On the
stumbling
second
the last
one,
bit
we
of the
see
way
the
towards the dwarves.
Hedgehog brothers.
"We've just moved into the neighbourhood," he said, gesturing
Probably
nervously in a
Timmy,
vague
the
direction.
rabbit,
"It's our
is our
cart.
master.
We're transporting
The
my
magician
in-laws'
that he was
furniture.
with
And
it,
if it falls
the
over,
magician-
my
the
wife
the
is going
Chinese
to—"
magician we met.
The badger seemed to have
now
difficulty
he's like
imagining what his wife would do
dwarf
to him
that
if the
we
cart
met.
fell over. "Please
We
come
had to
with me,"
help.
he begged the dwarves.
Like,
"Of course,
all
we'll
this
just drop
time work
everything and
here.
come and help," said Steinberg, and, with a weary sigh, tapped the remaining tobacco out of his pipe. The harvest would have to wait. The wood dwarves followed the badger to the place where he had got into difficulties. The big wooden cart was packed with old cupboards and other furniture. It was propelled by a bike-like frame fixed to the front. At least, at the moment it was fixed to the front, so long as it didn't get stuck in the mud and wasn't about to topple over, as was the case now. The badger's wife was waiting by the cart, trying to stay calm. She was not, however, having much success. As she saw her husband and the dwarves approaching, she ran up to them. "Are you here to help? The cart, do you see? Do you see?" she asked anxiously. Steinberg, Logger, and Softsteel could see the cart clearly, as it was directly in front of them. Softsteel groaned quietly. "That's my parents' furniture. It mustn't be damaged at any cost," she continued agitatedly. "It has so many memories. Do you see?" The three wood dwarfs had no problem seeing. Softsteel groaned again, a little less softly. "All right, boys, let's get down to it," said Steinberg, and the dwarves began to make a plan. Logger took a look at the cart, inspecting first the sides, then the front. Softsteel examined the mud, which had swallowed two of the wheels, while Steinberg checked the consistency of the path in front of and behind them. Eventually the dwarves started to search for thick branches to lever the cart from the mud's grip. While the dwarves were busy working and planning, they noticed the badger's wife talking secretively to her husband and looking up from time to time as if she was afraid they might grow suspicious.
Wow.
Steinberg didn't hear particularly
Judgment.
well, but he did have a particularly good instinct for things said behind his back. For him, it was obvious the badgers were talking maliciously about him and his fellow lodgers, and that made him extra grumpy. Using branches as levers, the burly dwarves managed to pull the cart out of the mud in one go. Then they stabilized it by covering the track with twigs and leaves so the wheels wouldn't sink in again. "All right, give it a try," said Steinberg. The badger mounted the bike and pedalled as hard as he could. Slowly the cart moved forward along the track, rattling and rolling under its heavy load. "It's worked! It's moving again!" the badger said, coughing and hastily accelerating along the path. "Sorry, but I'd better not stop," he yelled, "otherwise it might get stuck again." His wife ran up to the cart and managed to clumsily climb on, sitting down on a cupboard. And thus the cart and its load of furniture lurched and reeled down the path. When Steinberg was sure they were out of earshot, he clenched his fists and gave a loud "Pah!" Softsteel and Logger looked at him inquisitively. "Didn't you see they were talking about us behind our backs?" he asked, infuriated. Actually, they hadn't noticed, but there were two things they knew for sure. Their friend was reliable about things like that, and they didn't like things like that. The dwarves were angry. "I'm used to people only coming over here if they need our help. Really, I'm used to that," said Logger dejectedly. "But talking about us behind our backs while we're helping, that's just—" Steinberg patted the disappointed dwarf.
Hi, Kobe, how are you? And I'm just getting the stories and
With
hearing
something,
them. It takes a
grumbled
little bit
Softsteel.
time, as you can see.
So, with the harvest
all of
still
this.
to be done, the wood dwarves
But I
returned
hope
to
you
their
have a
root
chill time.
beds.
How are you?
Hour after hour they worked to the very end of the day, which gave them a few more reasons to be grumpy. They grubbed out the roots with their shovels and hoes, plucked the precious plants from the earth and put them in their harvesting bags. When the bags were full of ripe roots, they emptied them into huge baskets waiting at the edge of the fields until even they were crammed full. The dwarves didn't take a break until all the roots had been gathered and the most exhausting part of the harvest was finished. It had been a rich harvest, but none of them could derive much satisfaction from it.
Last time it was midnight and
Steinberg
I
sat
really
down
had
at the
to
edge
sleep.
of the field and puffed away at his
Because I had
pipe.
to wake up early the next
Logger,
day, so I was
lost in
just like,
thought, gnawed on a
I
straw.
will listen next
Softsteel
stream.
didn't even want to
And as
ponder.
you can see, I
and
already
spent
got
his
like,
time
the first
cleaning
story.
the
We
roots.
already heard it. But
Later they
in the
carried
meantime, I
basket
got the
after
second
basket
one,
into the
we
house and
heard it
stored
too,
them
and
in their
now
mine
we
shafts,
are hearing
next to the
third one that I just
machinery
got.
with which they liquidized the roots to gain the precious blue juice. They took their time on this,
I
knowing
didn't
that their
listen
thoughts would
to
go
it on
back to the
Thursday, though,
unfriendly badgers when they'd finished.
because I was having some
Afterwards they
trouble
wanted to
with
spend the evening outside, so they
with the
took
game
out a
that
couple
was
of chairs.
closing itself
Here, under
on
the
the
clear
platform.
sky,
I
they
had to
could let
restart
their
my
thoughts
computer
roam
and I
and
really
forget
didn't
their
want, so I
troubles.
switched to other games.
Dusk began to fall, and in the distance birds started to
I
sing,
already ate all
their
my
songs
blue
ringing
Kobe. I
out
need to buy
clearly
more,
to every
actually.
corner of dark and tranquil
And
Mousewood.
then I need to get
Gradually, a completely different sound made itself
I need
heard.
to get the caderneta.
An uncanny,
Yeah,
rattling
it's annoying,
squeaking,
but it's fine.
barely audible at first,
I always
but
had
growing
other
in
games just in
intensity
case,
until it could
so
not be ignored.
I played
As the dwarves tried
Catch
to
the
spot the
Stars.
source of the noise,
Catch the
a
Stars.
faint light appeared between
on
the trees,
that I
bumping
have
back
got
and forth while coming
as my
nearer.
September game on Steam.
It was the badger, riding his
And
bicycle
then,
cart.
since I finished that
On the
game,
back
I
stood
went
his
to
wife,
play
holding
100
something.
Doors Escape from School.
As they arrived at the dwarves'
and I
home,
didn't
the
finish that
badger
though,
brought his vehicle to a
but
halt and dismounted.
when I'm done
"Hello
with
again,"
this,
he
I'll
said.
go back to it.
"We didn't have the chance to
Or
thank you
if
properly.
I'll
Without your kind
happen
help,
again
we'd have
in the
been
future,
stuck forever."
I will use that instead
He
of
then thanked every
trying to
dwarf
play this.
personally with a firm
And thank you
handshake.
for the pets.
"Earlier on, we were wondering how we could show our gratitude," his wife said, laughing. "No easy task, I can assure you. My husband Peter said you'd probably like a blueberry tart, but I thought you'd appreciate a rhubarb cake." As she spoke, she uncovered a rhubarb cake and gave it to a very surprised Steinberg. Taken unawares, the dwarves completely forgot the fact that they didn't actually like rhubarb cake. "Again, many thanks for your kind help," the badger lady said. "It was a pleasure," replied Steinberg, as he took the freshly baked cake with a slight bow, assuming that was the right thing to do. Logger shook hands with both badgers and mumbled, deeply moved, "Welcome to the neighbourhood." What Softsteel would have liked to be a mumble, since he couldn't find the right words at this particular moment, turned out to be more of a touched sigh. With that, the badgers bade their farewells and rattled off on their cart. The wood dwarves watched the wobbling light until it was swallowed up by the darkness. Back in their house, Steinberg put the cake right in the middle of the table and slumped down on his chair. "Pah! So they brought us a cake," he said, and eyed the cake, which in fact for a rhubarb cake looked quite delicious. Who'd have thought it? Looks like they actually brought us a cake, Logger agreed thoughtfully. Steinberg stood up and walked around the table, scratching his chin and thinking. The other dwarves looked at him expectantly, waiting to see if he had an idea. "We'll have to return the favour, or they might think we're bad neighbours," the oldest dwarf said firmly. And as he said it, he gestured towards the cellar door, where the freshly harvested dwarf roots were stored. Later on, the dwarves celebrated and ate the rhubarb cake with great pleasure. It had a very special taste, one you could really get used to. Then they raised their root beer-filled mugs to the new neighbours. Far into the night, the dwarfs' home was filled with bright light, and thick blue steam spiralled into the night sky. And for quite some time, the rattling and sizzling of machinery could be heard coming from the cellar, as the first drops of the new season's blue juice were bottled.
Hey, back to them. Wait, go back. Guys. Oh no, it was a mushroom. I thought it was a sticker. I thought it was a sticker.
On the door it says, Premium Dwarf Root Storage. It also says, Hands Off. And it is firmly locked. Oops, wait a minute. There's something under the board.
Wait, what?
A card, but a really unusual one.
Okay.
The machine is running again.
I didn't expect that.
Seems like the wood dwarfs enjoy cleaning up.
Okay.
Or perhaps they had a visit from their granny. My mum always cleans our place then too. I mean when our granny comes over, not the wood dwarf's granny. We don't even know her.
I'm here to strength property and no one says anything. Oh. Maybe I need to be there to see the teardrops. That little guy is still there. I don't think I have heard the crow. Okay. Wow, that crow has some ego.
Hello, Jeremiah. You're still awake? The night air is laden with a certain fragrance. You can almost smell the stories floating in it, and I have already captured one this very night. It took place right here at the house of the Hedgehog brothers. Would you like to hear it? Did you like my story? I offered fright roast. Well, perhaps this. Maybe I.
Time for another story.
Fourth story. Mr. Brown and the Curious Case of the Reliable Hedgehog Brothers. It was a dull, windy day when Mr. Brown the mouse arrived. Only rarely did the sun poke through the heavy shroud of grey clouds over Mousewood. It had been days since Mr. Brown left his home town, sleeping at different boarding houses and inns on the way. The further away he got from familiar territory, the more he felt it all becoming a fully fledged adventure. It was this desire for adventure that had, over the years, driven him to go on long journeys. This time it had been an invitation from his good friend Rushlight that encouraged him to take to the road again. Mr. Brown had met Rushlight on one of his journeys a few years back, and they had been friends ever since. In his letter, Mr. Brown's acquaintance invited him to visit Mousewood. This was where Rushlight had withdrawn to some 2 months previously, in order to write poetry and read some of his more demanding books in the calm and tranquil ambience that the forest offered. For a hasty observer, it would have been easy to overlook Mr. Brown as he passed through Mousewood. The chubby little mouse had always been an inconspicuous fellow. A skilled observer, however, would have noticed a certain insecurity in Mr. Brown since entering the forest. He seemed to have problems getting around roots, sticks, and stones, as these are rarely to be found in towns and cities. So Mr. Brown was preoccupied, holding his fedora firmly on his head to stop it falling off, while in his other hand he carried a big case. Despite this challenge, the mouse was actively enjoying roaming around this new territory. Between Mr. Brown's pink ears dwelt a lucid mind, which often proved helpful to his fellow mice, especially when complex tasks or tricky puzzles were involved. Following the directions Rushlight had given him, after turning left at the big birch and then going straight on, Mr. Brown reached his acquaintance's house. From a distance he could already see him in the front garden, sitting in a deck chair reading a book. Rushlight was a mouse of stalwart physique, who wasn't only tall, but also made a tall impression on everyone who didn't match his height. Mr. Brown hardly ever made a tall impression on anyone, at least not through his physique, since, even for a mouse, he seemed a little on the short side. Mr. Brown crept up and startled his friend by patting him on the shoulder. Rushlight sprang up from his chair and, recognizing his guest, exclaimed loudly, "My dear friend," and gave him a literally breathtaking hug. "You've made yourself at home, I see," said Mr. Brown, readjusting his hat. "Indeed, this really is the place to be," Rushlight said, spreading out his arms and taking a deep breath. "A couple of weeks in Mousewood will drive the city's grime and noise out of your head, I promise you. Seems like it's done you lots of good already. You almost squashed me," Mr. Brown remarked with a smile. "Well, it's a great pleasure to see you again," said Rushlight. "Can I offer you a drink?" "What kind of a guest would I be," his inconspicuous friend replied, "if I rejected such an offer?" "Still very much yourself, I see," said Rushlight with a laugh, and offered his friend a seat. Then he disappeared into the house. Mr. Brown sat down and carefully placed his case next to his chair on the forest floor. He relished the moment and looked up, finding the magnificent treetops much more beautiful than the buildings he was used to that filled the city's skies. Moments later, Rushlight returned with glasses and a jug. "It's an uncanny coincidence," said Rushlight, and poured Mr. Brown some lemonade. "But only yesterday I heard about a case that might interest you." Mr. Brown took a sip of his drink and listened to what his host had to tell him. "Over the last couple of weeks I've been taking long walks through the neighbourhood. Roaming the forest after months of dull city life changes you completely. Your spirits," said Rushlight, beating his chest, "return, and you're full of zest. So it was that yesterday I came across a house where a group of animals had gathered. Said house was a beautiful wooden construction, artfully crafted onto a tree trunk. As I found out later, the inhabitants had built it themselves. 2 hedgehogs, with the reputation of being excellent craftsmen. When you see the house, you'll agree that they deserve all the praise they get. Anyway, to find out what the animals were discussing so passionately, I addressed a beaver standing nearby. He explained that the previous night, the Hedgehog brothers, who own the house and the workshop behind it, had been the victims of burglars. It seems that both their tools and the materials they'd been working with were stolen when they left them in the back garden. Apparently, not even a tranquil, idyllic place like this is safe from thieves and their kind, concluded Rushlight. Mr. Brown listened attentively, looking into his glass that had now been reduced to 1/3 full. "Maybe you're right, dear friend," he said. "But we shouldn't be too hasty to call this theft." Rushlight refilled his glass as a magpie chattered above, spying on them. "What makes you think this could be anything other than the work of a common thief?" asked Rushlight, intrigued by the thought. "Well, according to your account, not only tools but also materials went missing. A thief only after things of certain value would have taken the tools but discarded the cheaper materials. In this respect, I think, local burglars wouldn't differ from their city cousins." "You're right," agreed Rushlight. "But the question remains as to who stole the tools and materials, and for what reason." Determined to solve the mystery, Mr. Brown and Rushlight decided to pay the Hedgehog brothers a visit. If this wasn't the work of a common thief, maybe they would find some clue as to the culprit. After finishing the lemonade, Mr. Brown put his case inside the house, but took his umbrella, as heavy rain was forecast for Mousewood any time today. The 2 friends were in luck, and the rain held off. The ground, however, was still soaking wet with the rain of recent days. Whenever they encountered miry passages, Rushlight got through without difficulty, and Mr. Brown appreciated the fact his umbrella could also serve as a walking stick. Accompanied by the scent of earth and moss, the 2 mice walked along the path. The Hedgehog brothers' house was located a few paces from the edge of the forest, and was indeed a remarkable building. It wasn't enormous, not like a castle, but was of modest proportions, built in several layers and stories around the tree trunk. As the pair was looking at the Hedgehog brothers' house from the path, a lizard with a slouch hat emerged from the house next door.
Okay,
and joined
that
them.
lizard is weird. The lizard
"You want to
people
visit the
here,
hedgehogs?" the lizard
it's something.
asked. "Yes, indeed," said Mr. Brown. "Is that
What
their
is wrong
house
with
over
them?
there?"
What is
"It
going
is.
on?
And if I'm not mistaken, they've just had visitors.
And why can't we
You
use the
should
portal
probably
to
go
go back
over.
home now?"
It certainly looks like rain," the lizard said, pulling his hat a little deeper over his face. "Are you acquainted with the Hedgehog brothers?" asked Rushlight, leaning on the fence. "Yep, for ages, I might add. They're good neighbours, as everyone will tell you. Both of them are happy to do simple jobs for free, and they're reliable. The only thing is, the noise from all the hammering and sawing is unbearable," the lizard said with a rueful smile. "Yesterday was the first day in weeks I was able to take a nap in the afternoon. I heard the hedgehog's tools were stolen. That's probably why they couldn't disturb your nap, isn't it?" Rushlight asked. "That's the case. Yesterday morning they were gone," replied the lizard. "Despite the fact that burglary is a very rare occurrence in these parts, you know." The lizard took his leave and went off towards Meadow Pond. Mr. Brown scratched his head, while Rushlight opened the gate leading to the hedgehog's home. Just as the visitors were about to knock at the door, it opened. The Hedgehog brothers were just taking their leave of guests, a lumpy mole lady and her smaller husband, who both wore thick glasses. Mr. Brown and Rushlight stepped aside to let the moles make their exit. "Mr. Rushlight, a pleasure meeting you again," said the corpulent mole lady with a smile. Rushlight, quite the gentleman and a chip off the old block, bowed politely. "How do you know my wife?" asked the male mole,
Oh
looking
my God.
reproachfully at Rushlight through his thick
Jealous.
spectacles. "Why, Ludwig," his wife exclaimed, dismayed. "We met this nice gentleman at the garden party near Marigold Meadows. He's from the city. He's here on holiday." The mole helplessly hung his head. "Well, I joined you quite late, so it's not surprising you don't remember me," Rushlight tried to help. "Please excuse my inadvertence anyway," replied the short-sighted mole, looking at Mr. Brown in a disoriented fashion. The latter was so amused he completely forgot to introduce himself. "How can I help?" asked one of the Hedgehog brothers. "We were hoping to discuss the disappearance of your tools with you," said Rushlight in a serious tone. The Hedgehog brothers nodded. Every bit of help was much appreciated, since this was already their second day without tools, the second day without work. "You heard about that too?"
Getting money.
asked the mole lady, genuinely upset. "Someone took their tools in the middle of the night. They're the most reliable carpenters you'll find. They never forget anything nor leave work undone. And now their tools are gone. And that's not the worst of it. They were working on a new desk for my husband. Ludwig so enjoys writing letters. We'd almost finished the lady's commission, and suddenly
are
our
these
tools and cuts disappeared,"
the moles
sighed the hedgehog
that
with
we
the
met,
red
parents?
dungarees. His
Are
brother
its
in the blue
parents?
dungarees blew his nose loudly into a large handkerchief. Mr. Brown looked at him with interest. The hedgehog blew his nose again and muttered hoarsely, "It's sad that our tools are gone, sure, but I've caught a cold and I've got a temperature." He coughed. Then he coughed again. "Please let us know as soon as you get your tools back," said the mole lady before saying goodbye. "But Lottie, the old desk will do just fine," said her husband as they left the hedgehog's yard, looking up at her insecurely. "And I haven't actually written any letters for quite a while." "I know," she replied, "but just wait till you sit at your new desk. You won't be able to stop writing." The mole sighed quietly. The Hedgehog brothers led Mr. Brown and Rushlight around to their workshop behind the house. "Everything's just like it was the evening before we were burgled," the hedgehog in the red dungarees said. His brother stood a few paces away, giving his cold his full attention. "So you left your tools and the parts for the desk out here when you finished work for the day?" Rushlight asked. "Yep," said the hedgehog, looking around the workshop. It was empty, save for some sawdust on the grass. Mr. Brown looked up to the sky, his gaze following the shifting clouds. "Do you always leave your equipment out in the open like that?" he asked. "No. Usually we put our tools, materials and the like in that store over there. Not because of thieves, but because of the weather, you see. Tools need to be kept dry," the hedgehog explained. "Then why would you have left your gear outside in this weather?" the short mouse asked, lifting his fedora to scratch his head. The ill hedgehog let out a hacking cough. "He forgot." His brother rolled his eyes as if he had already heard the accusation 100 times. "Usually my brother takes care of these things because I'm absent-minded," he admitted. "In contrast to me, he's quite reliable, but as you can see, he's ill. As he's got this nasty fever, he went to bed early that evening, and I didn't think of putting our gear in the store. Strange thing if you think about it. The first time we forget to put our stuff away, someone steals everything." Mr. Brown took a good look around the yard. "Tell me, what do you use these other stores for, next to the one where you store your tools?" he asked. "Jars," the hedgehog replied. "We restock our supply a few months before winter and then lock the shelters. It's a long time since anybody's been in them, Luckily, the thief didn't break in there. Indeed. Seems like a remarkable coincidence, some scoundrel picking precisely that evening to go off with your tools, said Rushlight. Don't forget the materials. What would a thief do with the parts of a half-finished desk? Mr. Brown pointed out. Perhaps we're dealing with an inexperienced thief, the hedgehog suggested. He just grabbed everything he could in a rush. Things rarely get stolen around here, so a lack of experience could explain that, don't you think? But a nervous thief would be in a rush. He'd sooner grab something more valuable than your boards. I'm convinced our thief took the materials on purpose. He must have had some special interest in those desk parts and your work, Mr. Brown concluded. The brothers suggested a cup of tea. The ill hedgehog led the way to the living room, staggering slightly from time to time. He seemed a bit dizzy. After going to the kitchen, he returned shortly afterwards and slumped into an armchair. Then he closed his weary eyes, swaying back and forth. You should get some rest, Rushlight said in a worried voice. The hedgehog opened his eyes again, giving him a fatigued blink. I suppose you're right, he said, and then turned to his brother. You heard him. Would you care to put the kettle on? His brother stood up with a smile and went into the kitchen. When Mr. Brown asked about cups, the hedgehog pointed out a cupboard from his armchair. Mr. Brown put 4 cups and saucers on the table. Then he sat back on the couch, which wasn't all that comfortable, since, for obvious reasons, the hedgehog brothers had no cushions. A few minutes later, the other hedgehog returned from the kitchen. You'd already put some water on to boil, he said to his brother. Had I? He replied. Well, so much the better. The hedgehog poured the tea for his guests and his sick brother, a tasty wild briar tea. Our forest's famous for this, he informed the tourists. If he hadn't been saddened by the loss of his tools, he would probably have added a chuckle. But the brothers found this was no time for joviality. They did nevertheless talk to their guests about the forest, the town, and other things. As the ill hedgehog brother reached for his tea and took a careful sip, his brother said, That's my cup. The sick hedgehog took a closer look. Right, he said. Sorry. Mr. Brown smiled. Might I have a look at the key you used to lock up your store? He asked humbly. Puzzled, the hedgehog brothers looked at each other. What could the mouse possibly want their key for? The ill hedgehog pulled the keychain out of his pocket and handed it over to the still smiling Mr. Brown, who examined it closely. Am I right in assuming that these keys fit the locks on the other storerooms, where your supplies are stored? He asked. Yeah, that's right, the fit hedgehog confirmed. Mr. Brown went to the living room window and looked into the yard where the storeroom stood. I think I may have just solved this puzzling case, he said. Rushlight and the hedgehogs were astonished when Mr. Brown suggested going out to the yard. Only the ill hedgehog stayed in the living room and watched them through the open window. This is a good example of how even the trickiest cases can be solved over a nice cup of tea, said Mr. Brown. Up in the trees a few sparrows chirped. Then who is the thief? Rushlight asked impatiently. There is no thief, Mr. Brown answered, and there has been no theft. But our stuff disappeared, the hedgehog said. That is beyond doubt. You're right, of course. So it's time to make it reappear, suggested Mr. Brown, and walked over to one of the stores where the jars for the coming winter were kept. He unlocked the door with one of the keys on the keychain and pulled it open. Between jerky and jarred fruit lay the half-finished parts of the desk and the tools. In fact, everything missing since yesterday morning. Rushlight was speechless, as was the hedgehog. How did they get in here? He asked in amazement. Your brother did not, in fact, forget to clear up the workshop and your equipment, Mr. Brown explained. After you finished work, he got up again, went to the yard, and, as reliably as always, put the material into the store. But just as he confused the teacups due to his fever, He also confused the stores. His tracks are clearly visible in the mud if you look out of the window, despite the fact that
I
nobody
saw
has
this
been there
coming
for weeks.
when with the mug thing, but the
When he
thing
had
is,
finished
the lizard
storing
is sus.
everything,
The
he
lizard
locked the
people
door
here
again
is
and forgot
sus.
he'd ever been there, just as he forgot he'd already boiled the water for our tea. That's why he was as puzzled as everyone else about the disappearance of your tools. Things like this happen when you're running a fever, Mr. Brown concluded. Rushlight slapped him on the back and exclaimed, "What a reliable fellow! He never forgets anything. Sometimes he just can't remember not forgetting." The hedgehog took a hammer out of the shelter, walked to the workshop, and, hiding the hammer behind his back, waved to his brother. "So, what's the news?" the sick hedgehog at the window asked. His brother produced the hammer. "Where'd you find that?" his brother asked, in as much amazement as his sore throat and dizziness would allow. The other hedgehog pointed at the store behind him. "Right where you put it, brother," he said, laughing. "Me?" the other brother asked, thinking hard. "Really? Well, okay." No one took his mistake amiss. If anything, he had once again proved his reliability. And you can't blame somebody for having a cold, now can you? Later, on their way home, Mr. Brown and his friend Rushlight took the time to enjoy the countryside before returning to the forest. Here, on the elevated northern edge of the woods, one could look far into the distance across the fields. The wind hustled big piles of grey clouds through the sky, which, where the sun managed to pierce the thick shroud, cast huge scudding shadows on the fields beneath.
Back to the camp. We came from there. Let's go here.
In the hole of this I found to banish those who are in.
Wow, that sounds
This is
exciting.
32. How do I know? How do I know? Wait, I can go down. Wait. I can go here. No. It doesn't want me. Fine, the spirits thingy and here. Let's go to the hair thing. Trying to find it. I don't understand. This mouse is so happy all the time, just dancing all day, and then here is just death. The hair though. No. What about hair? Oh,
Hello, Jeremiah. I have a special story for you. Did you like my story?
David
I
from the
often
fifth
fret
one.
lost
Story time.
what happened.
Fifth story. Plato's Song. Among the reeds of Meadow Pond sat Plato the frog, enduring the midday heat and the constant buzzing of the gnats. The insects had been in high spirits ever since Plato had told them a few hours earlier that he wouldn't be preying on them, at least until evening, when it got cooler. He was accustomed to feeding on fat flies, but didn't mind giving them a day off as long as they left him alone. In this heat, just the thought of shooting his sticky tongue out of his mouth was exhausting. Plato slipped into the water and relaxed. "Quack," he said contentedly, floating just under the surface of Meadow Pond. Just his head poked out of the water, and he watched opalescent dragonflies wheeling and zooming through the clear sky. With their huge compound eyes, the dragonflies could easily spot Plato, even when he was obscured by the water, so they showed off, flying aerobatics around him. At least that way they wouldn't tempt him to have a nice little snack. It's moments like these, when you should actually be feeling contented, that you realize there is something amiss. While Plato floated like a piece of wood, motionlessly pondering until he bumped into a water lily, his thoughts wandered to music. A long time ago, he had made music with 4 friends, by the pond or in glades, playing sessions which had brought them a certain amount of fame and recognition. Besides Plato the frog, the band consisted of Jonas, an otter from the north and a gifted trumpeter, Nicholas the lizard, an inspiring triangle player, Peter the badger, a master of the harmonica, and last
I
but
don't
not
trust
least,
the
Anya
lizard
Mouse,
people here.
who
I'm
sang
sorry.
and played the accordion. Their ways had parted long ago
They reached,
after a
like,
heated argument,
We
although
are the
today nobody could
solution.
remember what it had been about.
Like, what the heck?
At the time, everyone went their separate ways and hadn't played together since. But even today, some forest dwellers remembered the small group of musicians and their sessions. Plato climbed out of the water and sat down cross-legged on top of a lily pad. He wanted to make music again. So why not pay his friends a visit this afternoon to maybe have a jam and relive the good old days? As this thought struck him, Plato sprang up, danced a couple of tap steps, spread out his arms and exclaimed loudly, "Quack!" It already sounded like part of a song. In a high arc, the frog leapt headfirst into the water and swam back to his house on the opposite bank. A small footbridge led to the water where a rowing boat was moored. Frogs, of course, do not generally need boats, but Plato always had one ready for those guests who weren't too keen on swimming and could thus still enjoy the idyll of Meadow Pond with him. Plato opened his front door, walked down the hall, and climbed the ladder leading to his bedroom. His home clearly marked him out as a music enthusiast. His walls were covered in posters of famous musicians who'd been at their peak decades ago and since fallen into obscurity. Great entertainers from a time when the streets of the big city were filled with infectious rhythms and catchy tunes. Crab Calloway, the singing crustacean, a remarkable band leader in a white suit. The Rat Pack, who were in fact 3 very successful mice and who cracked jokes together on stage while performing their most enjoyable songs. There was a picture of Maurice Skunk, a charming French singer. Plato even owned a record player and a collection of LPs with his favourite singers. Despite the fact it was still very warm outside, the frog put on a white shirt, black trousers and braces, as he always did when going out to visit friends or family. Even in weather like this, For Plato, it was out of the question not to dress in style. Finally, Plato went to the living room and opened the big doors of a huge cupboard. Carefully, he took out a case, put it on the table, and unlocked it. The case contained Plato's violin, its polished red wood gleaming in the sunlight. He ran his hand over the precious instrument before closing the case and snapping the locks shut. Then the frog left to visit the friends he had lost sight of so long ago. As Plato didn't like walking along gritty paths with his thin-skinned feet, which were more suited to swimming and the living room, he decided to take his bike. He strapped his violin case onto the rack and started pedalling. First on the list to visit was Peter. As far as Plato knew, the badger now owned a bakery and sold pastries on the western outskirts of the forest. The quality of his bread was beyond question, with many customers happily confirming the fact every Sunday when he baked his famous Sunday rolls.
I will be right back.
Plato rode along the bank of the pond, then turned onto the track that led around Mousewood. The direct route through the forest was shorter, but by bike he'd be quicker if he rode outside the woods. En route, he came across two humans who watched the frog pass by with astonishment. "Look, a frog," said one to the other. "They live in ponds and pools and eat insects, I think." Soon the frog reached the western edge of Mousewood, where he got off and pushed his bike along the path, since he wasn't familiar with this part of the woods and didn't know exactly where to find his old friend. In front of a row of houses, two grandfatherly squirrels were telling stories of the old days, with a cluster of grand and great-grandchildren playing and laughing around them. When they saw the frog with his bicycle, the children stopped playing to get a closer look at the stranger.
Okay.
The seniors, however, were too busy talking to take any notice. Plato turned to them and cleared his throat. "Grandpa, I think the frog wants something," one of the kids shouted, staring at his grandfather and pointing at the frog. As he couldn't stare at Plato at the same time, the other children took that part. "Yes, what is it?" one of the elderly squirrels asked. "Excuse me," Plato began.
Hi,
"Could you tell me where I can find the
you?
local bakery?"
Thank you for the hydration. You arrived right after
the elderly squirrel
I
mused.
went to check
Used
on
to
my
be
cat
right
because
over
my cat
there,
was
he
meowing
said,
non-stop.
pointing to the left with his cane. "Then," he continued, "then it
And
moved
that it
over
was
there,"
maybe because of like
and he pointed
the
to the
bad
right.
weather, because it's raining and everything.
Nowadays, though,
But
he
my
concluded,
cat
putting
is
his
like
cane back on the
plushy.
ground in front of him. Nowadays,
mouse,
they're somewhere
Nice
else.
to play with.
You'll find bread and pastries
And he likes to
over there.
catch them, and then he meows
Plato
a lot
turned around.
for us to see like he did
There,
a great
indeed,
job.
with a shop window
He's a great
displaying the
hunter.
finest cakes and rolls, was the bakery.
He was trying to show him.
It was full of
But
customers.
hi, how are you?
"Many thanks," Plato.
Let me just SO you, and then we go back to the story. Because as soon as I'll tap
The squirrels to
always,
the other. Plato's braces obviously
stops the
recalled
game.
his own youth, when the streets of the big city were filled with infectious rhythms and catchy tunes.
And I'm just having a
He
chill stream
reminds
today.
me of
I
someone.
couldn't stream yesterday, so I moved my stream
The
for
bakery
today.
was bustling with activity.
And I'm just trying
The
to find
entrance
the
or exit of
stories.
every customer was faithfully
Like the
marked by
storyteller,
a tiny bell,
It is going
and
around,
made
so
no
then I
exception
can
for our
continue the
frog.
story.
Inside, the smell of
Because
freshly baked
I
wares
think the
filled the
storyteller
air.
only appears
Cakes
at
and
night.
bread, but
I'm trying
also
to get it
rolls and
everywhere,
cookies.
and then
Behind the
continue doing
counter, a badger
the
attended
side
to
quests
customer
that are
after
mixed with the
customer.
main quests on this game.
Plato
But it's
wasn't
a really
sure
chill
how he
game,
should
and I hope
ask
you
about
have
Peter,
a chill time.
and decided to join the short queue. A few minutes passed, accompanied by the bell's clear ring when the door opened or closed, and the sale of blueberry cake, cheese sandwiches, and coarse wholemeal and poppy seed bread. Eventually it was Plato's turn, and, since he wasn't an ordinary customer, he tried not to confuse the baker too much. I am an old acquaintance of Peter's. I hope this is the right place to look for him," he said. "It certainly is," the badger lady replied. "I'm his sister. I'm just helping out. He's moving in with his wife, you know. That's why he's not here right now." "I see," said Plato thoughtfully. "Unfortunately, I can't reach him at the moment either." Would you like to leave a message? The badger lady asked helpfully. Just send him my best wishes, please. Best wishes from Plato the frog. I'd like to make music with him again. Plato, I've heard of you. He'll be happy to see you again, she said. Here, have a few of our fresh cookies. On the house, she added with a twinkle. Thanks, said Plato. I'm sure they're delicious. An elderly mouse behind him elbowed her way to the front of the queue and said, Yes, we all think they're delicious. So it would be most kind if you would let the rest of us buy some as well. Plato was tempted to complain about the mouse's rude manner, but then remembered he wasn't an ordinary customer. So he left the shop, and the soft ring of the bell bade him farewell. The frog picked up his bike, brooding. There were still 3 music acquaintances from the old days left to visit: Anya the mouse, Nicholas the lizard, and Jonas the otter. Plato strapped the cookies on the rack of his bike next to his violin case and rode off. He seems somehow familiar, said the elderly squirrel with the cane as he watched the frog disappear. You're probably confusing him, old chap, his equally elderly friend replied. And if I am, then it's my business, said the other squirrel.
Oh my God.
He swung his cane through the air, pointed it towards the bakery, and shuffled, surprisingly quickly, across the road. Entering the shop, the squirrel had a look round. When he saw the badger lady behind the counter, he elbowed his way to the front, ignoring the numerous cries of, How dare you! Intolerable! What appalling manners! He wasn't that bothered. A squirrel of his age can do pretty well as he pleases. Excuse me, but who was that sprucely dressed frog who was here a minute ago? The old fellow asked the badger. That was Plato, the musician, she replied. Plato, of course, the squirrel exclaimed, smacking his paw against his forehead, angry that this hadn't occurred to him earlier. Behind the still irritated customers, yet another person shoved their way through to the front. This time it was Peter the baker, carrying a large box and wheezing, Plato the frog? Plato let the cool breeze play around his green head as he rode past fields and meadows and a group of mice and squirrels on a hiking trip. Eventually he reached an avenue of old trees offering much-needed shade. The frog dismounted and had a look round. Jonas the otter lived near the avenue, close to a small stream, so Plato left his bike at the track and walked down a narrow path leading to his friend's house. There he knocked on the front door. No one answered. There was no one home. Disappointed by his run of bad luck, Plato strolled back up to the avenue and decided to take a break from his roaming around. At that moment, a gentle melody wafted down to him. It was a robin, high in the treetops, and its song was so lovely, Plato stopped to listen. A few minutes later, the robin had finished and took off from the green canopy into the clear blue sky. But Plato was oblivious, having fallen asleep. While he was sleeping, Plato's dreams took him far, far away, as far as one can be taken by one's dreams.
He went back in
Yet,
time.
for a moment, he thought he heard 2 old squirrels, a badger and other animals walking through the forest, chatting. But so many dreamlike things happened in his dreams that the voices almost immediately slipped away again, and sleep had him back in its cosy arms at the edge of the forest. When Plato awoke, the sun had almost disappeared beyond the horizon, taking the warmth of the day with it and leaving sky and clouds to shine in the afterglow. Back on his feet, the frog took a few moments to grasp where he actually was. I must have fallen asleep, he thought. No wonder in this heat. Now, though, he was wide awake and well rested, and it was a really lovely evening. But now he could hardly visit his acquaintances, being reluctant to disturb people after sunset, and even more so uninvited. So Plato made his way back to Meadow Pond without having jammed with a single one of his friends. He sighed and reached for the cookie bag strapped to his bike rack. He took a cookie. And then another. Delicious, he thought, eating
And then
some more.
they were all gone.
When the bag was empty, he crumpled it up, put it in his pocket, and brushed the crumbs off his shirt. Then he switched on his bike lights and rode home. Night had not yet fallen when Plato reached Meadow Pond, but it was dusky enough to spot the fireflies as they sped through the reeds and tall grass in front of his house. Wanting to walk the rest of the way, Plato got off his bike, when suddenly someone leapt out of the bushes. "The frog! It's the frog!" shouted a little squirrel, pointing at Plato and scurrying off towards Meadow Pond. Plato was quite startled. Slowly he pushed his bike onwards, the sand crunching beneath its wheels. "We wondered when you'd turn up," shouted Peter the Badger, waving to him. With him were Anya, Nicholas, and Jonas, all the musicians he used to play with so many years ago. There were also the grandfather squirrels, their grandchildren, and several other forest dwellers. They had decorated the footbridge to Plato's house with lanterns, and all of them were in a merry mood. The elderly squirrel he had talked to outside the bakery came up and said, "I always admired your music, you know. When I heard you wanted to play again, I gathered your former colleagues together and then waited for you right here. It seems you have quite a few fans," he said, pointing out the guests who raised their glasses of blue juice in greeting. Some of them Plato recognized as customers of the bakery. "Well then," said the frog, opening his case and taking out the instrument. The guests held their breath in anticipation. They were so quiet they could hear the soft sound of Plato picking up his violin and bow.
ASMR.
Plato walked down to the footbridge, where his fellow musicians were already assembled. All four greeted Plato as if it had been yesterday when they last made music together. And then they were set. Anya the mouse picked up her accordion. Nicholas the lizard had his triangle at the ready, a bit nervous about playing in front of an audience again. Jonas the otter fiddled with the mouthpiece of his trumpet, calm as could be, and Peter took his harmonica out of his front pocket. "Why don't we start with Plato's song?" Anya suggested. The other musicians agreed, and Plato felt honoured, since he had composed Plato's song, one of their most famous pieces, back in their heyday.
Don't
The
tell me
band
he
started
was
to
the
play,
one composer.
and their
I
music
couldn't tell
sounded just
by
like
the
in the
name.
old days. The audience were enthusiastic, and more animals from the neighbourhood came to listen to the infectious rhythms. Even the toad family swam over from the opposite side of Meadow Pond and joined in. As the song ended, the frog danced a couple of tap steps on the footbridge where the boat for guests had been tied up, spread his arms wide, and, to applause from the audience, said loudly, "Quack!" And that's how Plato's song ends.
Wow. That's big. Wait, can I go back? Can I go back? Can I go back?
Wow, I don't think I've ever seen so many stars. It takes your breath away, makes you feel small. They remind me of the glow-in-the-dark stars over my bed. I feel like I haven't been home in an incredibly long time. I hope Mum's okay.
Wait.
Oh, what's going on here?
It's a ritual.
The bodies are mine, for I discovered him, freed him from the prison of his existence, and made him useful to us.
The belongings are mine, too, for I placed the 4 metals in his hands. When his vengeance is at hand, our work begins.
The land is my due, for I let him know the order in which he must drive them into the trunk. When their power comes to bear, our work shall begin.
The souls are my due. From me, he knows how many blows he must strike. Once he has struck them, we will go to work.
Run?
Someone is listening.
Only a child.
A human.
One of us.
No. No, we aren't one of us. I saw a tongue coming out from there. Should I approach? Should I approach them? Let me do a pull. Oh, 1 minute is. I'm doing a pull. Should I approach them? Like they're a little bit sus here. Should I approach these guys? It's I'm not so trustworthy of them. I'll if there is no thing I will approach them with this. But I don't. I approach them. Okay. I will. No one will. That's fine. I'll just see what's happening. Please don't kill me.
Excuse me.
A child. We worry about you.
Humans like us tend to worry.
If you look closely, you can see the worry in our faces.
You aren't
Who
human.
knows that you are here?
What if you were to disappear on an ill-fated night such as this?
Ill-fated? But I...
Soon this world will be healed.
No more worries about money.
About land.
About luck, about health.
But you make us worry.
Okay, bye. Where should I go then? Like, where is... I'm missing 3 stories. Oh, I just noticed Molly is here. It isn't there.
It looks like the town hall is closed at night too. Hello? Mr. Conrad Owl?
No.
Um,
Your caramel-colored fur. Just like toffee fudge.
Ah.
I think he's asleep.
And he's dreaming with eating mice on. Oh, he's here.
Oh, hello, Jeremiah. You seem to be something of a night owl. I prefer to write at night. Writing seems to be a lot easier then. In my book, I've written down many a tale. Oh, I think I've got one that you might like. It's a story about a human like you visiting this forest. Would you like to hear it?
Yep. Oh wait,
What a
this is
wonderful night.
the 7. What about the 6?
Have I told you how much I love the night?
Wait, did I just found this? Wait, where is the 6 then? We aren't hearing the 7 one. I'm not going to find the 6 first. Where is the 6th book? Just remember something about those guys again. Mm.
Hello, Jeremiah. Out and about so late? Shouldn't you be home tucked up in bed by now? I prefer to collect my stories at night. And I've
Wait, why
only
could I
just
go
finished
from
this one.
5 to
I
7
think
though?
it is the last story
Because it
in
just
my
goes-
Mouswood book. Would you like to hear it? Did you like my story? I often fragment lost beginning and lost end. Perhaps this. Maybe I can.
How did it? Because like he just goes to another place after I get the story. What the? Let me. Six. story. The bite. Oh my god, I couldn't fly. Almost there. Bridge. Oh. Oh, okay. I see. So I can't get the story. We aren't going to listen to it because I want to listen them all by order. But like I need to go to another world, and then when I come back, because I need to go to the swamp and I can't go there yet. Oh, I don't think it's here.
That sure looks tasty.
Thank you. Can you take it to the hare factory?
Sure.
Thank you, my little cracker crust. Welcome back.
If I stay here reading for too long, they'll close up.
Okay. Let's go here then. See, he's partying here all the time, and he says that he's practicing for the party. And then when it's party time, he's just there in the corner, not moving.
Hello, Mr. Hare. I brought the cake you ordered from Anya.
Oh, wonderful. It's about time. Looks like you aren't completely useless after all. Oh, the cake looks good. You know what? I will make a major exception for you.
Oh my god.
As of today, you can officially take part in our popular hare parties.
Thank you, because I'm a hare myself.
Why?
I appreciate for the invitation.
Don't just stand there. Go, enjoy the party.
What a moody fellow. I hope the rest of his family is a little more laid back. Wow, what a party. There sure are a lot of people here.
Birthdays are always a big deal for the hare family.
But don't the hares celebrate a birthday every day?
Of course! It's perfectly normal in such a big family.
Bottoms up!
Oh my god. This is the guy that is dead the whole day.
Who wants to think about Samora today? Today is everybody's birthday. Yours too. Here, take this.
This sounds a lot like Alice in Wonderland. How do you say it? I only remember the name in Portuguese. The non-anniversary thing going on. Also, what did they just got? Oh, a trophy.
There's something engraved here. Peter Mouse Trophy Paradise. Special moments at rock bottom prices.
Okay.
Bottoms up. Who wants to die? Here.
Oh,
Another one of those cards.
are you going to
I've
give me
already
anything
done
else?
that. The hares really know how to party. Now they can finally serve food at the party.
Oh, at last I can enjoy the party in peace. My younger siblings are insufferable when there's no cake.
Isn't it a pleasure to see the hares celebrating? Although I've completely lost track of whose birthday it is today.
Oh, there are presents too. Or rather, a mailbox. Well, the one getting the present seems to like it. Hares.
Hey, don't judge me.
I ought to talk to people who like jokes. I ought to talk to people who like jokes. I ought to talk to people. That punch looks really tempting. It smells like blackberries. That reminds me of Mum's tasty blackberry pie. I would love to have a big piece of that right now. I hope Mum's pie won't be cold when I get in. Ooh, there are the glow nuts.
Aren't they fascinating? The juice they contain attracts fireflies by the score.
I could really use something like that.
Then take one, but be careful. If they burst, there will be glow juice everywhere.
Perfect.
Oh my god. The sound of it.
I thought you were going to dance this evening.
My poor feet. I gave myself blisters dancing this afternoon. Oh dear.
I wonder why.
I'm so looking forward to the party.
I've got to tell you a joke.
Love to hear it.
Well, why do bees hum?
No idea.
Because... oh, I forgot.
Oh.
But you'll like this one. Why do mice usually avoid drinking too much blue juice?
Well?
Because... I just can't remember punchlines. But I've got one more. A rabbit couple is booked on a luxury cruise. At the quay, they get stopped because there are too many of them. Why?
I don't know.
Because...
In this life, eh?
Because...
They forget.
I don't know either.
Pity.
If you pass it on, maybe someone will know the answer. Someone with a sense of humour.
I wrote down as much as Jonathan can remember.
I'm trying those.
I'd better talk to the pros. With my stage experience, I ought to be careful with untested jokes.
Okay.
I'd better talk to the pros. With my... Break a leg.
What's true? Isn't that exactly?
I didn't say I wanted to go there. And I wanted to go to the hair party. I need jokes though.
I'd better talk to the pros.
We're off the air.
I should do this during the day.
Okay.
That big flower is really interesting.
Hey.
I'm just a...
Okay.
Whoopee! Hello, well. I heard strangers live in the tree. Let's go. Hang on tight, Jerry.
Cherry.
See you later.
Okay.
I wrote down some jokes from Jonathan Squirrel. I made a special note of it.
Fire away.
Why do bees hum?
Obviously, dear listeners, because they can't remember the words.
And why do mice usually avoid drinking too much blue juice?
For the same reason as me, because the hangover gives them the blues.
Okay. I don't quite get that one.
Never mind.
A rabbit couple is booked on a luxury cruise. At the quay, they get stopped because there are too many of them. Why?
Because with rabbits, 2 is a crowd.
I don't get that one either.
Oh my god.
But the audience loves it. You could be a really good
I kind of
co-host.
got it
I wrote down the
because like
answers.
all
Now
of
I have
the
3 complete Mousewood jokes.
drunk and everything.
Woohoo! You're out well? When? I recently saw an advert for Violet. Let's go. Hang on tight,
That's
Teddy.
true.
See you later.
I think I know how I can replace the water nut.
All right. So show me if...
Okay. I've collected genuine Mousewood jokes.
Well then, good luck. And now, opening for
Okay, let's see
wonderful
how this
Church
is
Mouse
going.
Junior. Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry.
Hey, Jerry! Are we getting the nut again?
No, now it's time for a laugh.
We've got our fingers crossed.
All right, well, why do bees hum?
No idea. Why do bees hum, Jerry?
Because they can't remember the words.
Good one. More!
Why do mice usually avoid drinking too much blue juice? Because the hangover gives them the blues.
Those laugh, oh my god.
Super.
They are so
That
tired
kid's
laugh.
really good.
You'll love this one. A rabbit couple is booked on a luxury cruise. At the quay, they get stopped because there are too many of them. Why?
Tell us. Come on.
Because with rabbits, 2 soon becomes a crowd.
Brilliant. But you can't tell it to just anybody. Oh, no.
Thank you, thank you.
Jerry, get off the stage.
Wow, why are so...
My junior has absorbed this new knowledge like a water nut. He's just as thrilled as the audience. I've hardly ever seen him this
Your
fired
junior
up
is
about
so
something,
weird.
And the water trick never got this kind of reaction. Since you've made a great comedian out of Junior and brought me this much closer to my retirement, we'll be happy to give you the water nut. Right, Junior? Junior? Yes, he agrees. Take the water nut.
Terrific, thanks a lot.
You'll see, soon my junior will be a big star, and you can say, I knew him before he was famous.
I'm truly, honored. How's business?
Super. When I'm enjoying this show, cash is...
A green... break a leg.
What's straight, isn't that... exact?
I know.
I'm sure my mug is an all-purpose weapon, but it won't help me here. I don't want to waste the water nut on that. That doesn't need to be spooned. That's my trophy. I'm not just going to give it away.
Ugh. Oh, I lost the barrel.
I don't want to waste the water nut on that. I'm sure my mug is an all-purpose weapon.
Oh.
Memo, we need more blue juice. Well, the barrel looks empty. Memo.
Did I take it then? Hmm. How do I... Oh, I remember what. Okay, I was just looking what I had to do now. Okay.
Good idea. With this, I might be able to bring light to the darkness. But it's much too high to maneuver heavy nuts up here. The old squirrel said that the juice in the nut attracts fireflies. Maybe I can spread the juice on the tree somehow. If only the tree wasn't so far away, and the nut wasn't so tightly screwed down and heavy. It's not easy being 12. No, we don't want to have a glow juice accident. Then I'd glow in the dark. No, we don't want to have a glow juice accident. Then I'd glow in the dark.
And where did that midge bait get to now?
Yeah, I could light up the darkness at night with the nut up there in the tree. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nasty brat.
Yeah, No, we don't want to have a glow juice accident. Then I'd glow. No, we don't. Then I don't want to waste the... I better be careful with this thing. That doesn't need to be spooned.
Then how do I heck?
They wouldn't dare do that on the Emerald Isle.
Oh, wait.
What does the pipsqueak want there anyway?
Paws off! The cannon has to be ready for the next. Imagine it. Usually the fire have to even at night.
I've got a little present for you.
No? What? Are you making fun of me? I need a mug of hot black coffee, kid. Oh, Sorry. Oh, I'm so tired. So tired. Paws off! The cannon has... Imagine it. Usually they fly. I have to keep... Even at night.
Oh wait, oh, I see.
One hot coffee. Too bad I don't like coffee.
Yeah, you don't. But the squirrel likes.
A couple of drops should be enough. I've got a little present for you.
Oh, what an aroma.
Brewed fresh.
Shuk.
Oh, yeah. Boing!
That laugh was
These sleeping drops are really
something.
strong. I'm starting to feel guilty. Well, who knows? 40 winks will probably do him wonders. I'm sure the nut fits perfectly inside the cannon, but why should I shoot it into the countryside? Now the cannon is pointing. Okay, let's see if it works.
Oh, pretty.
Wow. I almost hit the big branch behind the town hall. When you look at that, the glowing stuff from the nut is attracting fireflies from all over Mousewood. How pretty. And the guard is still sound asleep in spite of the noise.
Not only here. Not only he was asleep. Everyone. The noise wasn't that much though.
Wow. The glowing stuff from the nut is attracting fireflies from all over Mousewood. How pretty.
I already said it.
It's still awfully, but at least now I can see where I'm putting my feet. I hope this works all right. Did it! That was pretty exciting.
Do you know how long I've waited? I'm now ancient in a few days. I suppose you fired on the tree, didn't you, brat? Here I was, minding my own business. And then I almost dropped my spoon. Only I couldn't, on account of you stealing it. At least the tree now has a lovely colour. What the weevil do you want in my world, you whippersnapper? I suppose you want to extort your 3 wishes out of me.
I'm a magician's apprentice, and I want to learn a spell.
Give me the hat, and I'll take you along.
I'll keep it until we're over there, okay?
You suspicious boy. All right. Anyone looking for magic in my world comes to me. You simply wish for something.
Okay.
Is he serious about the wishes?
And just like that, we went into a tree.
Here it is, size 40B. Oh, an oversized green hat.
High time too. Such long legs, and yet a snail's pace. Put it on, Grandpa. The shamrock's cold.
Say, what is this place anyway?
Well, stick some wings on me and call me a fairy, my lad. We're in the land of the wafting winds, the dazzling depths of the lovely lakes, of the melancholy musings of the moon.
Oh, the weather is horrid, cold and wet.
That's what I just said, you little shamrock ripper. Wish pish. Everyone's always after just the one thing. No wonder I stay in hiding. I'm sure you're planning to wish for 5,000 shiny leaf bucks, aren't you?
I get to make a wish. Oh boy.
That's the tradition, and traditionally, it backfires.
What did you say?
Oh, nothing.
But where would I put that much money?
You're worried about that, but it's all you. You've been collecting odds and ends everywhere you go. Your pockets must be deep, you brackish tea drinker.
Yeah, we just put an entire owl inside of
buy
it.
you 10,000 bags of jelly beans, 1,000 comic books, or 100 video games.
Sounds great, but actually...
I think...
what was that you just called me?
Whippersnapper, brat, tater nose, pipsqueak, shamrock ripper, brackish tea drinker, slime slug, junior potato farmhand, miserable midgebait, tedious tadpole.
Oh, right. But I think you included some new ones. I'd rather be a master of my trade, right on the spot.
All right, your wish is granted. You're now a professional, certified, officially distinguished plumber.
What? But I...
You're now a master of a trade. A popular one too. Everyone loves plumbers because they're so useful. Two more wishes, Junior Potato Farmhand.
All right. In that case... Again, what did you call me earlier?
Whippersnapper, brat, tater nose, pipsqueak, shamrock ripper, brackish tea drinker, slime slug, junior potato farmhand, miserable midgebait, tedious tadpole.
That's it. I wasn't sure whether I heard you right. I wish everyone who saw me took an instant liking to me.
Okie dokie.
So far I don't feel any different. Actually, hey, there's a tickle. Ooh, could this tickle under my nose be my new power? Yikes! What's that stuck to my face?
Ha-ha! A moustache! Just like a big grown-up who's finished his training.
But I didn't ask for a moustache.
Ha-ha! One more wish, miserable midgebait.
Can you repeat those names you gave me one more time?
Whippersnapper, brat, tater nose, pipsqueak, shamrock ripper, brackish tea drinker, slime slug, junior potato farmhand, Miserable midgebed. Tedious tadpole.
The more often you hear it, the better it is.
Oh, these two are good.
Oh no, I wish I was better at choosing words.
But of course, that was your third wish.
Mamma mia! Oh, what have you done with my voice?
Oh my
My
god.
beard.
This
Who
is
could
a
possibly be
Super
more
Mario Easter
successful
egg.
than a plumber
First
with a
is
moustache?
we are a plumber, then we
And
got a
an
mustache,
Italian
and now we are
And that is a
Italian.
mustachio. Is itching like crazy.
I warned you, boy. Never make light of a wish, or it's guaranteed to backfire.
Per favore, I'll do anything. I'll return
Per favore.
the spoon, the cobalt and the nails. Just to get me back to normal again.
Are you trying to bribe an O'Donnell with his very own property, which unrightfully pilfered in the first place? You brazen scallywag! Ha! 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 All right then. You and your obnoxious lovability.
Ah, I can breathe again. Thank you for undoing all those wishes.
I had never said I'd undo all your wishes. You'd be better off if you remain a plumber, boy. A handful of skills is better than a sack full of gold. Now you've had your 3 wishes, leave me in peace.
Oh, where did he go to this time?
Did I give him? Yeah, I gave him.
Reminds me of a gigantic multi-purpose wrench. The kind you use to fasten screw nuts and drain pipes. Oh no, where did that come from?
I wonder where.
Looks like rain. Did you pack some warm clothes, a raincoat and an umbrella? That's what Mum would have said. That itchy red penguin sweater would actually come in handy right now. I may not be an archaeologist, but this tower looks really ancient. I can't see a thing. Something's hanging in front of the window on the inside. Funny. I'm sure he ran in here. There he is. Wait a minute. How did that get here? Zaroff. Everywhere Zaroff.
I think we ate some.
This flag smells like a dog. How do I know that? We don't even have a dog.
You have a dog.
Hail and rain and wafts
Looks
of
like
mist.
rain. Did you pack some warm clothes, your raincoat? That's what. Excuse me.
Oh, by St. Patrick, what else do you want, you greedy brat?
What I'm really looking for is a spell.
You're not going to find any magic here. I'm all out of magic. Can't do it anymore.
How come?
To the corners of me mouth, I'm particularly convinced. Without a rainbow, I'm stuck here. When I'm in a bad mood, I can't conjure up rainbows, or rain, or anything else.
And what could make you laugh again?
That's no small feat, Tater knows. It would take something very special to cheer me up. Something very special.
Very special and shiny. Oh, wait. Put it back, put it back. I don't want to do it.
The portal is firmly closed, but I need to take care of the little green man. Sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Hmm.
He's so small. I don't want to hurt him.
Wait.
Now here's a sight for sore eyes. Is it silver? A tiny wee silver cup. Goat manure and tater skins. It's as dull as a pot of tar.
No, that didn't work. The trophy isn't shiny enough. The cup isn't shiny enough. I'm going to polish it up a bit. Perfect. Flag disintegrated in the process. Here we go. Oh, what lovely weather we're having out here. My Woodruff lemonade tastes especially refreshing from this, well-polished silver cup. I'll just set it down in this window and look the other way for a bit, totally captivated by the emerald splendor of the landscape.
That's what I see blinking. A wee tiny bright, shiny silver goblet. Oh, its beauty is worthy of the Emerald Isle. For all its lies and deception, constant toil and shattered dreams, the world is still a grand old place. Mother! Emmis is coming home.
What? What?
Stop! I've still got a spell to learn.
Then run after him. Oh, let's set the cards.
Oh no, he disappeared again, and this time for good. I can't travel on the rainbow. What do I do now?
There's magic in it, right within your grasp.
But he's gone, and I didn't even see how he conjured up the rainbow.
Your answer lies within the rainbow itself. It will soon dissolve again. So hurry up.
Wow, what colours! It almost looks like I could touch it.
You can. You must.
Hey, I wanted the card, not the rainbow. My card. Welcome back, Queen.
I thought they were nothing more than an optical illusion.
You just learned your second spell through the power of the magic rainbow. You can use it
Power
to
of
make rain
friendship.
and help green things grow.
Wow, I'm never going to wash this hand again.
Now go back to the portal. You've learned the magic of this place, so now the portal is open again. But hurry!
What's that? Another one of those cards.
Oh.
I wonder whether the green hat dropped that. It looks like it shows me, but together with some dog. How odd. But I don't even remember this. That's weird. I thought they were nothing. Wow. I thought they were. Wow.
Get them to run. What the?
Goodbye, rainy green landscape. It's funny, but I think I'm going to miss the little band hat. It's still night here. Now what?
This. How is it possible?
What was that noise?
Jerry, is that you?
Father.
Who was that? Did he call my name?
Perhaps we will soon find out. But we don't have much time. The second nail has been struck.
The second nail?
Seek the entrance in the next portal tree. You will learn your next spell there. Look for the magical creature who lives in Mousewood. There's a rumor that a fox is roaming the fields of Mousewood at night. It is not from this world.
It's the fox that they've been following me the whole time.
Sounds dangerous. Rather boring paperwork. Old, but boring. This armor could have been made for a sparrow. Sort of a... perfect for a deadly... Sir... Just dust... Hey!
Oh. Oh, that's cute.
That looks like... I don't know what
Oh
that
no,
looks like,
Kirill.
but it seems to be stuck in the middle of the tree. That can't be a good thing.
Hi, Kirill. How are you? Thank you for the raid. I was actually thinking about sending in a bit, but I will stay a little bit longer for you and to everyone who came from you. Also, if Kirill, if you need to go and everyone from your community also needs to go and everything, feel free to do so. I'm not holding you back here, but welcome. How was your stream? And welcome everyone, Kirill raid. Thank you. Also, for who doesn't know me, my name is Diviana Lunalepus. I'm a human hair hybrid, the audition for short, and I normally do arts and crafts streams, but also gaming streams like I'm doing right now. But yeah, how was your stream? I was lurking there a little bit. Also, we are playing today, The Night of the Rabbit. It's kind of a magical point-click adventure mystery. Has a little bit fairy tale mixed, and we are just learning some spells.
Nothing. There's probably nothing here that will grow.
Oh no. What happened for you to get disconnected from the game? Because I heard that Diablo was having some bugs, but what happened for you to get disconnected? And thank you for the follow, Paul, Justin. It's okay, it's totally fine. Just do your thing. I'm not holding you here, so just go and do your thing. Don't worry about it. And I really appreciate the lurk and the raid as well. I'll probably just go stream a little bit far and see raid with me because I was actually thinking about ending. But I can still play for a little bit longer, like more 30 minutes, and then I will raid. Because the person that I also want to raid is doing a 24-hour stream, and before I started the stream they were going for 6 hours, so I can still raid them. Yeah, let's just see, what can I use this spell for?
Nothing. There's probably nothing here that will grow.
What?
Nothing. Nothing. There's probably nothing.
Oh, the mushroom, maybe.
Nothing. There's probably...
Oh, I know what it is for. Oh, my inventory is getting really something. Oh, I need to get more stuff for my inventory.
Woohoo!
Hello, Jenny.
Hello,
You're out
Plato.
well.
Just teleport me
When was
here,
the
please.
last time you were in Anya's cafe? Let's go. Hang on tight, Jenny. See you later.
Just put daylight so then I can just already start letting the drops there. And I will also speak with the fox.
Nothing's whispering here.
You're funny, little boy.
Let's see if this works. Hey, presto! A stairway!
Oh, let's just go.
I'll admit it, I totally impressed myself. Of
Okay,
course,
let's
a
just go.
mushroom escalator would have been even better.
Oh,
Whoa, I'm pretty high up here.
this is
And it's cold.
creepy.
Ah! Who's he then? A scary Mothman. And the entrance behind him looks strange too. I can almost hear it whisper, "Cherry, come closer. I've swallowed a portal." Another one. And another.
Okay.
Ooh, it's dark in there, but I can see something glowing at the end of the tunnel. I sure hope that's the portal, and not something else.
Maybe something else.
Fast asleep in broad daylight. Sometimes I wish I could do that instead of going to school. Then I could stay up all night reading comic books.
That's not what things are, Cherry.
A stick won't help here. The passage is closed. They seem to be nocturnal around. Excuse me, I'm looking for a tree portal. Have you got something like that in your nest? And if you do, could I see it? Or pass through it? Is that a yes? Blink 0 times for a yes. Maybe
Okay.
he can't hear me. Hello, Mr. Moth. I
don't know
would
if it's a
like
mister.
to ask you something. I always have to speak up like that with my granny too. And if you yell loud enough, anything can sound important.
No wingless beings in here.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Moth.
I told you.
What was that? Wingless?
Your vibes are disturbing this place.
Oh. I'm not sure what that means, but I believe this is a private area for insects. Too bad I don't have any wings.
Go.
Let's see how much this fancy water nut can really hold. The nut took root, but it didn't really suck up a lot of water. I bet that a fully grown water nut tree can suck a whole pond dry, but I can't wait here for years watching the tree grow. Maybe we can provide some help for the little water nut tree. Wow!
That's the right attitude. Dear listeners, Burrower has dug himself out once again in one piece and dry as a bone. We will now continue with our programme. Swamp Radio 103.5. Mole in the morning, Mole at noon, and Mole in the evening. As always, we'll start off with my favourite music.
Okay. Oh, we are dancing, huh? So that's something. How's it?
A sticker.
Oh, it's a bunny. Wait, is it on? Let's.
Plato's mailbox. I wonder what's in there. I have a choice. Wet feet or ignorance?
Ignorance.
I'd rather stay dry and not know.
Thank you.
God, it smells of wet dirt and grass. I'm sure my mug is an all-purpose. Stylish. Judging from the mailbox, Plato lives here. A stick won't help here.
There is something there.
I better be careful with... What an awesome flower. I shouldn't pick it, but I just want to touch it anyway. This isn't a museum after all. A blue root.
I got that beautiful dwarf root from the dwarves as thanks for promoting their blue juice on my show.
That's
but
fair.
the listeners at home already knew that, of course. And here next to me is Jerry Hazelnut. We all wish the young Treewalker lots of luck. But now, on with the program.
Ha! I was on the radio.
We all wish the young Treewalker lots of luck. But now, on with the program.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
Look. Set up in honor of the foxes, or to annoy chickens. Looks like a very large corkscrew.
Okay. Okay, that's good drop.
Another drop.
Oh, I
think
saw
that was
something.
it.
I found them all. I found them all. Oh wait, I could have seen here the whole time. Oh, I knew that. The guy isn't here anymore.
Steinberg isn't here.
This lizard is still here though. They said something about nice, so I'm just going to sleep.
So tired. It's completely dark outside, and the dwarves are gone. They must be working in the fields outside.
Hi Pyrospank, thank you for the follow and welcome. I can't go here yet. Oh, let me see. No, I already saw how it looks. But how does this look though? Okay.
We all wish the young Treewalker lots of luck. But now, on with the program.
Hi, how are you? And welcome. Oh, I see that you came from Kiriel's raid. No, it doesn't do anything. Why is there a fly here?
That's Buzzy, the dew fly. I call him that because he creates a bigger buzz than even I do. Actually, he belongs to the post office, but I've grown really fond of him.
Oh, wait. Why does Plato have fly pet when he hits flies? I'm concerned here. Okay, have a nice sleep. Rest? Yeah, please rest.
How strange. There are green lights flickering across the fields. Maybe it's someone with a lantern out for a walk.
I didn't want to do that.
It looked like you conjured the rain yourself.
Yeah, well, I... Uh-oh.
What is it, Jerry? A fox!
Kitsune!
Who are you?
She's so
Jerry,
pretty.
be careful. Don't move.
Coward. Follow her!
Wow.
Oh, but my little froggy heart is still racing like crazy. Fortunately, the fox wasn't hungry for either of us.
That was no ordinary fox. Did you see how many tails it had?
I wasn't paying any attention to that, but what a scare. Oh, holy dragonfly.
Can you imagine how your fly feels by seeing you eating flies while having a fly pet, Plato?
There it is again. It jumped further into the swamp. It almost looked like it was waiting for me. I'm going after it.
Go! Oh, it's a fox that's even following us.
Where did the fox go?
I was right.
You caught me! Alas, now I have to go home.
The fox jumped into a portal. I can't let it get away again.
Folks, you won't believe what I just saw.
He's just there like exactly. It's so pretty though.
So, you finally returned to us, Kitsune. I hope you'll stay a little longer with us this time.
Oh, the fox skipped off. Again. So its name is Kitsuna. But who just
Kitsune.
talked to the fox? So where am I now? It is very quiet here, as if there are no people anywhere near. Only more of these fox statues.
Don't judge it.
But I can hear a very soft ringing, or chiming. Over there, in the bushes, I see something sparkling.
I can't even move or do anything. Please let me.
I can see a little golden bell hanging there. I wonder if the fox from Mousewood lost it. Set up in honor of the foxes, or to annoy chickens. Earlier it sounded like it was talking. Hello? Anybody there? No reply. What a strange statue. Is that supposed to be a fox as well? Ho ho! That is pretty loud. Oh, that is some army of fox statues. Scary.
Okay.
Nothing's happening. Maybe it's because it's made from wood, not stone.
This is something.
Another one of those posters, but it looks a little different, and I can't read the writing, but I guess it says, The Great Zaroff.
Yes, it says.
It almost looks like an entire city back there, but I can't see any people. Earlier it sounded like, hello? No reply. What is that?
What? Why does this sound different?
Who disturbs my slumber? I cannot see you, but I sense your presence.
Well, we're right here.
Your path has led you to this point, but no further. I am the keeper of this gate. I am the guardian of this place. A blind fox could smell you from miles away. And so can I. How did you arrive in this place? That we foxes wrested away from the humans. Human. Since I did not allow you to enter through this gate, you must have gained access through the tree node.
Yes, the portal.
Kitsune. Her dealings with humans have rendered her almost as blind as I.
Is that a reason to not let me through?
This gate will remain closed to humans. Stop this cruel din. What my blind eyes cannot show me, my ears will tell me twice, and my nose 10 times. I can smell you, human. Kitsune, is that you? The bright chime of your little bell cannot be mistaken. Your smell gives you away, human.
I...
You really thought you could deceive this old blind fox?
Oh, well, I...
A human? Deceiving a fox? No, this is precious.
Actually, I'm trying to return this bell to the fox.
Ah, returning her lost property. What a
Why
noble
is he
gesture.
so sarcastic,
You
though?
may pass, but be careful, human. Never trust a fox, especially
Aren't you a
not
fox?
one like her.
Isn't he also a fox? Well,
Ah, I find it surprising that you should be kind enough to bid me farewell. Thank you, my beloved.
It was bound to end sooner or later.
Yes, it is the end of warbling birds and green pastures. Instead, it is the beginning of murky waters and empty notebooks.
I have to go.
I know.
bye, Kitsune.
Not a trace of the fox. Maybe that lady can tell me where it went.
That lady was her. Wait, I wanted to look around.
Hey, the fox is right here, but where did the lady go? Ha! At last! Gotcha! Whoa!
Oh, boy! Stop following me around, Jerry. Don't you know what it means when someone is running away from you?
I am so sorry. Do you want me to leave?
No, please. I don't want to be alone.
Oh. Okay.
What happened?
I wish I could tell you, but you would hate me. And there is already more than one human who hates me.
Are you sure they really hate you? That sounds a bit harsh.
Well, how would you feel if someone had broken your heart? Wouldn't you hate them?
I don't know. My heart's never been broken yet.
If you stay with me long enough, I'll break it for you if you want me to.
I think I once saw someone's heart being broken. Didn't look very amusing.
No, humans are so fragile. Not in the least like foxes. We try to make you happy, but it never works out.
This statue once said I should never trust a fox.
But he's a fox as well. At least, that's what he was before. A few hundred years ago, he sold his 9 tails to a demon. So why should you trust him?
Oh, it's kind of right.
So, you, know my name?
Oh, I've been watching you for a while. Over in the other world where we met.
Really?
I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself. I'm
Yeah, please.
Kitsuna.
My name is Jeremiah Hazelnut, but my friends call me Jerry.
Jerry. Oh,
I think you lost something.
oh, please keep it. I would like it if you took it with you. so you'll remember me.
Okay.
He's blushing. We are blushing.
This is probably a silly question, but what are you? Fox or human?
I'm a fox, but I can change how you perceive me any way I want to.
Really? That's the coolest magic trick I've ever heard of.
You think so? It's not difficult. Just give it a try. Anyone can do it if they know how it's done.
Even me? I'm going to be a great magician, you know.
Oh.
So, you can teach me how to do it?
No, I promised on my parents' honour that I wouldn't teach it to anyone. The foxes here only use it to make people unhappy, but not me. I want them to be happy, but it never works out that way.
For your information, happy is my favourite word in the whole dictionary.
Guys.
I'm sorry, Jerry, I really can't do it. Unless, do you really want to make people happy? When you succeed in making a sad person happy, then I might believe you.
Well, we can. We are really close to our mother.
I once asked Mum how you can make people happy. She just laughed out loud. Would that do?
No! Laughter is not enough. Have you ever made someone so happy that it inspired them to do something truly outstanding?
No, not really.
Then come back when you have. I know you can do it.
Okay. And there we go.
Whoa, those mountains are pretty high. I still haven't got a clue where I am. Could that be the Alps? No idea.
He's probably the person who I need to talk to.
As far as the eye can see. Those would make great pogo sticks. No, really, why would the poet keep staring at the pond? I don't get it. There's nothing in there.
The quiet pond. No, that doesn't cut it. Gloomy pond. Ah!
Excuse me, are you a poet?
Am I a poet? A poet needs inspiration. And she no longer wishes to be mine. Instead, she just broke my heart. My name will fade into oblivion, just like my words and the ink on my paper.
What are you doing here?
Dark water is all I can see. Dark, dark water.
Where did that, inspiring thing go to?
This wretched creature. She used me. A true fox. I was a fool to believe that she and I were in any way alike. Foxes' hearts are broken and filled with pain. The pain transforms into cunning. And the cunning of a fox will break any man's heart.
Are you looking for a new inspiration or something?
I need inspiration. But my spirit remains empty and unmoving. Just like this pond, nothing is stirring. And the same is true for my imagination.
Okay.
What about the rock over there? Isn't it,
Exciting.
Your words are just as empty as mine.
Don't tell me I didn't try. See you later.
I need inspiration.
And I need to end stream. So I'm saving. Quitting game. And not, oops, not that screen. Okay, let's go. Let's see, just check if everything is fine with Scotty's stream though. To see if I can read that. Because, okay, here. Let's just see if she's not sleeping yet. Okay. She's awake, she's playing Phasma. So let's read Scotty. So the red message was carried. This is the red message for who is up? Or who isn't sub? The red message with Treewalker. Yeah. And there we go. So thank you so much to everyone who joined me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kiriel, for the raid, and thank you for the follows, Paul, Justin, and Pyrospank. And yeah, I'm still going to check when I'm going to stream next week, but I'll post the schedule as soon as I can. And yeah, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it, and see you all next week. Bye bye.